Welcome back to Silverstone. We're here for a day of Formula 3 and GT. Formula 3 drivers making themselves ready for the third and final race of their weekend. The British GT teams are on track. This weekend they have one race only, but it's a 3-hour race and the grid is pretty much formed. Yesterday, the car to beat in qualifying was BMW. It will start at the front of the grid, and surrounded by this mouth-watering assortment of GT cars on track is Gary Champion.
Yes, thanks very much, David. If you're short, it doesn't sort of help down here because there's way too many people. Thankfully, Lawrence Tomlinson, if I did that, actually you look a lot taller, is with us. And no, don't please. Is with us. Lawrence, this is a packed grid, and to be fair, this shows the popularity of British GTs and how it's really come on.
Yeah, SRO have done an amazing job in building the grids, and it's a fantastic series that Ginetta are just delighted to support. I think we've actually got 9 cars running today. We've certainly got 3 GT3 cars, and I believe it's 6 GT4 cars. So, Ginetta supporting SRO, and a fantastic race ahead, I believe.
Well, my maths isn't very good, but I make that about a quarter of the grid.
Yeah, historically Ginetta's have made up about 30% of the British GT grid, and with the extra grid today we're still 20%, and we're just delighted to be here, and a British car at the home of British Motorsport, Silverstone, what could be better? And
when you came in this morning, I saw that you did a little lap of the circuit in the helicopter. Was that just to check it all out?
Yeah, well, we did a lap round because I actually filmed the paddock from the air with my Twitter feed. So if anybody wants to have a look at the video, I've tweeted that up there, Lawrence LNT. So yeah, wonderful. But what I'd like to sort of say is that Ginetta are bringing people into motorsport all the time, and that helps create these grids. So we have our junior series and our Ginetta academies that help develop the people, and it's not just people who are racing Ginettas today here like this one. It's people who've come through, like say Lee Mole, who we've helped with his, and other, and actually team owners and team managers, and we train engineers and they develop and move away from us and come back to us. So Ginetta are just trying their very best to help British motorsport in general.
And you do a very good job of it, Lawrence. Thanks very much. Let us walk the grid and see what else we can find. Come Brownie this way, and we'll see. We've got United Motorsports car here. Let's just see if we can find it. Zach Brown. I suspect Zach has got his helmet on, so this is not going to work awfully well. And we don't really like helmet interviews, but we'll just give it a whirl. Zach, I don't really like doing helmet interviews, but we'll give it a whirl. You're the boss man and so on, and you're starting the race.
Yep, you get to make that decision because I'm the boss. Actually, this is probably the best strategy for us. Puts Alvaro in to finish the race, which we're assuming there's going to be some safety cars. So we need to make sure we're there at the end, and if we are, that we've got Alvaro in the car.
Okay, great. Zach Brown, thanks very much indeed. United Autosports, as you can see, there's 3 of their cars here. Let's go take a look at what else we might have. Mark Blundell is somewhere. We'll see if we can catch with him in just a moment. We'll do this. Someone else does a sort of walk like this, and I think they might do it slightly better, but we'll give it a whirl and see how we get on. We've got drivers aplenty here. You can see a really, really packed grid, which is great because, as I say, we've got 47 cars on the grid today, so that's really good to see. Right, let's say we've got a driver here. Let's see if we can see it. No, helmet on. So we'll just see that's the Andrew Howard Jonathan Adam car that we've got there. See who else we might be able to find. I thought we might have more second drivers out of cars and so on. Right. He's helmeted. He's ready. He's ready to go. Who chooses who's first to go?
Team manager. As drivers, it's one less thing we can get the blame for, basically. The logic behind it is that the safety car is more probable at the start of the race, so you'd rather have a gent driver stuck behind the safety car than a pro. Obviously can't make any inroads, so it's a calculated risk. The pro, if you could start as a pro, as Bobby's doing next to us, if he gets clear air, then it's a great strategy. It's a high risk one, it's kind of win or bust on that.
Okay. And in terms of weather, it's a warm day here at Silverstone. Is that good for you guys in this car?
Yeah, brilliant. The BMW is the best car on the grid on its tyres, so obviously the heat brings up high tyre degradation, so that works with us better. So the hotter the better for us, and yeah, we'll keep the weather coming.
Okay, great. All right, thanks very much indeed. Joe Osborne, and let's just move along. Now, Gregor Fiskin's car is here, but Gregor is in the car. So that is Gregor Fiskin that is in the car with Richard Westbrook as his co-driver, and I thought Richard would be here, but he's not. But anyway, as the cars are on grid, they're beginning to leave grid now. Let's come back to us here at Silverstone after this break.
Welcome back to Silverstone. The cars are leaving the grid, ready for round 4 of the Avon Tyres British GT Championship. A 3-hour race is about to get underway. It is a mighty grid, 47 cars. We have, although I've noticed, 1 or 2 gaps on the grid. In fact, one of the Acuria Cos BMWs missing, and also one of the Dutch GT4 teams missing from the back of the grid. David Addison and Gary Champion at Silverstone, and the grid headed by Oliver Bryant, who did the pole time. Marco Attard will start with David Ashburn alongside him on the front of the grid. Behind them comes Gregor Fiskin and John Minshaw, Lee Mole and Matteo Bobby starting, and he's going to be one to watch in the black Ferrari in the first stint, ahead of Steve Tandy and Hector Lester, Andrew Howard, and then Benji Hetherington round out the top 10 on the grid. Behind them you find Tom Sharp and Duncan Cameron in the AF Corsa round Ferrari. Then Gregoire de Moustier sharing with Duncan Tappy, British GT debut for Duncan, and that's going to be another potential winning car, I reckon. Gary Eastwood is ahead of Steve Watt and then Zach Brown. After him, you will find Ahmed Al-Hathi, Richard Sykes, John Gore and John Dillon. Mark Patterson is ahead of Rambert Berg, then it's Klaus Hummel, Derek Johnston. Mark Poole starts his Aston Martin. Charles Putnam in the Pro Speed Porsche. Mark Blundell is going to be next, ahead of Ron Johnson, Ian Stinton and then Dom Evans in the Audi. Phil Burton starts from 31st on the grid, ahead of Jack Dwiver. Then it's Jamie Stanley. Former festival winner Ricardo van der Ende is 34th, ahead of Dan Eagling. Some of these cars now with the 4 prefix on the number, the 3-digit number in the GT4 class. You find Duncan Houseman ahead of Jan Joris Verheuvel and Adam Christodoulou. Declan Jones is ahead of Ryan Ratcliffe to round out the top 40 on the grid, and still they come, because you've got Rob Severs ahead of Nigel Farmer, and then it is the Alex Osborne Ginetta ahead of Fabio Mota. Then Steve Chaplin, winner at Rockingham, is next, ahead of Nicky Pastorelli. Although that car was missing off the grid is completed by Rory Bryant. It may be, therefore, that we have a couple starting from the pit lane in 3 hours of racing. Starting from the pit lane is perhaps not the biggest of disadvantages. Now, we've talked about the fact that there are going to be driver changes. There's a bit more to British GT, and you need to factor this in as well. First of all, everybody has to make a pit stop, and they're not natural pit stops like in other endurance categories. They are to a time. If you're a GT3 car, your pit stop has to be a minimum pit in to pit out, including the stop of 130 seconds for a refuelling stop. That is not, for example, just changing a tyre or bodywork repairs. If it is for a GT4 car, it's 190 seconds. Add to that, if you're in the top 3 in the previous round, your last pit stop has to have an extra time element to it. So number 32, as an example, which won last time out, Gregor Fiskin and Richard Westbrook, when they make their 3rd mandatory stop, everybody must make 3, they will have to do 130 seconds plus 20 more, because that is the success penalty gained at Rockingham. So there's an awful lot to change over the course of the race. 1 or 2 cars, because of their driver combinations, have extra weight. Ahmed Al-Hathi and Michael Caine is considered an exotic driver combination. They get 75 kilos. Gregoire de Moustier and Duncan Tappy, they also carry 75. So too, Mark Blundell and Jody Firth, James May and Alex Osborne have a bit more weight, again because of the driver categorisation, which is platinum, gold, silver and bronze. And if you do have 2 of a given grade together, you must carry weight to compensate for the perceived greater ability and pace of the drivers. There's going to be an awful lot to look at, an awful lot to think about, and bear in mind over the course of 3 hours of racing. And that's just the strategy part of it. There's also going to be some stunning racing on track. Lots of different shapes and sizes and different noises as well represented on a British GT grid. It's probably, it is fair to say now, the strongest domestic GT championship. And 47 cars headed by Marco Attard sprint their way out of Luffield in towards Woodcote Corner. 3 hours of racing for round 4 of the Avon Tyres British GT Championship is about to get underway. then any second now. The lights go out. The race director Bernard Cottrell gets them away, and as they run down towards Copse Corner, Marco Attard on the inside line, David Ashburn, and then John Minshaw with him on the outside line turn their way through as the cars accelerate round Copse, and there's drama already because that is Matteo Bobbi who's got himself in strife. He was expected to run away and hide early on, but it's David Ashburn who leads Attard. John Minshaw is third for track speed, and then Gregor Fiskin is in fourth place with Ben Hetherington's Mercedes fifth as they wriggle their way through the Beckett's S's for the first time. And somebody else in grief is Rob Severs, rejoining after a spin at Copse Corner on the very first lap of the race. Matteo Bobbi, former FIA GT champion, he was expected, and you heard it from drivers on the grid saying he probably should sprint away, but it's a bit win or bust if he doesn't make the most of the first stint. David Ashburn leading for track speed, being challenged by Marco Attard, going down towards Stoke Corner, and that's John Gore in the blue and black Aston Martin Racing sales director, almost coming to grief with Greg Vandermeer. The car's touched them. John Gore, former Caterham champion, very, very quick indeed, gaining places. Almost, though, put himself in strife going into Stowe for the first time. I think it was a 3-hour race, would you, the way that some of them are going. So as they come through Club Corner for the first time, looking at one of the 888 Optimum BMWs there, that was Lee Mole's car getting forced out a little bit wide in number 16 as well, the Ginetta of Richard Sykes, that too losing a bit of ground. With Ben Hetherington in the number 14 Mercedes, and he too is making progress, and he's on the back of Gregor Fiskin. Look as they come up now towards Village for the first time. So far this year, Track Speed with its Porsches has won each of the 3 races, but a different driver combination each time out, and a David Ashburn sideways second place Porsche is going after the leading BMW of Marco Attard. You're on board with Hetherington, glorious noise from the Mercedes. Down Wellington Straight for the first time. John Minshaw lining up to have a go at David Ashburn in the spotty car. David retired at the end of last year, but he's not missed a race this season yet in the British GT Championship. You can't keep a good man down. And David, who shares with Nick Tandy, and therefore is a potential winner, because David might be an AM, might be in his 60s, but he's very, very quick on his day. He's got John Minshaw behind him. There he is. John began in modern racing, but very much a historic star in recent years. And Ben Hetherington comes now out of Woodgate. He shares the car with Jason Minshaw, John's brother. Is he going to go to the inside of Gregor Fiskin? Not there, he's not. Those two cars came to grief at the first corner of the first race at Alton Park. And now the Mercedes tries to get the run on the track speed Porsche, heading up now towards Maggots. Fantastic stuff this. Hetherington's got the inside line for Beckett's. He takes the place, and going with them is Tom Sharp in the Ginetta. Round the outside of the middle of Beckett's. Great bit of driving by Tom Sharp. It gives him the place. He's a little bit sideways coming through Beckett's, but Sharp has gained the position, and that was really brave stuff. Gregor Fiskin, who is experienced in modern sports cars as much as in historic sports cars, drops back a little bit now. That car shared with Richard Westbrook. Expect it to fly later in the race. Behind them, Hector Lester is 7th. Steve Tandy runs 8th. John Gore 9th, and Gregoire de Mustier 10th in the McLaren. Now 78, the Curiacos BMW I mentioned was missing from the grid. Fuel pump failure is the reason that we lost the unrelated Piers and Ron Johnson combination before the race began. Big disappointment. So it's now down to Marco Attard and Oliver Bryant, who did the pole time yesterday, to uphold honours for that team. The Curiacos cars run by Barwell, Mark Lemmer's team. Now Mercedes versus Ginetta. Two very different brands. Tom Sharp in the orange car, right up behind Ben Hetherington, who is right up behind John Minshaw. Dare one suggests that David Ashburn is holding them up a little bit. The Demon Tweaks Porsche to the outside line. John Minshaw looking for a way through, but he can't do it as they come into Village. Tom Sharp, who was one of the drivers that Lawrence Tomlinson was alluding to, who's come through the Ginetta ladder, really. Started off in the Junior Championship, then into the Super Cup, now into GT racing. This is Ben Hetherington's view, and that, in trouble in Ferrari 28, having had a spin, is the Australian driver Steve White. Gets back onto the circuit. He shares the car with Michele Rugolo, who will be very quick in it, but that's cost them a lot of time already. David Ashburn keeping John Minshaw at bay, and Minshaw looking as though he should really be able to make some progress if he could get through. Marco Attard leading, but not by very much. The BMW Z4 has always been a good car around here. You heard Joe Osborne saying on the grid how it's good on its tyres in this weather. 12 months ago, they were the cars to beat in the Blockpan Endurance Series race on this circuit, Mark VDS winning. And now Hetherington goes to the inside against Minshaw, going into Copse, backs out of it. John Minshaw sticks out his elbows. This is the fight for third place, and John Gore running 7th in the Kinfan Aston Martin has done the best lap of the race thus far. He is starting now to get onto the back of Gregor Fiskin's Porsche. Look in the background there, the last car in shot going into Beckett's, lights ablaze, is John Gore. This is Ben Hetherington, and there's a whole queue of cars for second place. David Ashburn, John Minshaw, Ben Hetherington, then Tom Sharp, then Gregor Fiskin, and John Gore is almost up with them. And we've only done 6 minutes. Down towards Stoke Corner they come. Minshaw again has a look on the inside line. David Ashburn fends him off as they turn through the corner. John Minshaw took his first British GT win at Alton Park on home soil in round 1. And that was because the spotty car of Ashburn and Tandy got out of the way. Team orders let Minshaw through. David Ashburn saying, well, I'm not doing the whole season, so it's not important for me to win races. Well, as I say, he won the second race at Alton, he raced at Rockingham, and he's at Silverstone, so some retirement this is. Making their way now up towards Abbey. David Ashburn running second, John Minshaw third, and the car, and that off the road is Hector Lester in the Ferrari he shares with Alan Simonson. That's at the end of Vale, and that is disaster for the Ulsterman. It doesn't have Alan Simonson's quest very much. That car could possibly even lose a lap while it gets out of the gravel here. You're on board with Hetherington. Minshaw is ahead of him. This is the loop from which they turn into Aintree and then down Wellington Straight. Look at this traffic jam for second place. John Gore now on the back of it. The Aston Martin right up behind the Porsche of Gregor Fiskin. Cars going through Brooklands, and now Hetherington on the inside of John Minshaw using the curb. He's going to be on the outside at Luffield. Can he get past 2 Porsches in one move? Let's see. He's round the outside of Minshaw. David Ashburn bottling them all up. Hetherington on the outside. Minshaw on the inside of Woodcote, but he does lose out. That was really good stuff by Hetherington. The move started 2 corners back, and he comes through then to pick up 1 place over the timing line. You're on board with the Cheshire driver now, and he goes diving up on the inside of David Ashburn, going into Copse Corner. Through goes the Mercedes. The car went well at Alton Park. It's going very strongly here. It also went well in the second stint, to be fair, in the 2-hour race at Rockingham. Ben Hetherington, who shares with Jason Minshaw. And Jason is another very, very quick driver that we don't see enough of in modern racing. That car's looking well placed, isn't it? Fiskin losing out. John Gore goes through, or does he? Yes, round the outside. At the final part of the Beckett S's, John Minshaw picks up a place. John Gore, I should say, picks up the place in the Aston Martin ahead of Fiskin. John Minshaw is the one going backwards because Tom Sharp's threatening him, but Minshaw again challenging on the inside to get past Ashburn, going into Stoke Corner. This time he does go through. Minshaw passing the team patron. Tom Sharp impudently squeezes up on the inside. Now, why is David Ashburn struggling for speed here? And it's almost looking as though he had to let Minshaw go before he lost more places, didn't he? Sharp goes past him, John Gore goes past him. Is he going to let Gregor Fiskin go as well? Has Ashburn got a problem, or is he just genuinely not as quick as those around him? At the moment, it is a little bit harder to gauge, but the cars now make their way towards Abbey. This is lap number 4. Marco Attard is leading the way now by over 3 seconds. He's been helped in that because of all the squabbling going on behind him. The fastest lap thus far has been done by John Gore. And Hector Lester, we saw slithering off the road a little while ago. This is what happened. He was not alone in that, was he? Lee Mole's BMW, 888 Optimum car, and there was another as well involved in that. 27, Matteo Bobbi having his second drama of the race. Hector Lester is currently in 43rd position. He's back in the race, but for him and Alan Simonson, it's going to be one long afternoon, that's for sure now. Coming up towards the end of lap number 4, Attard leading at the start of the lap by over 3 seconds. Thus far, it is looking good for the Acuriacos BMW. There in number 9, McLaren, is Gregoire de Moustier, and he is the next driver to try to find a way past David Ashburn. Down to Copse Corner they come. So as they turn through, the right hand of the order is Attard leading to as ever thus. Hetherington's Mercedes second, John Minshaw third, Tom Sharp's Ginetta going very strongly in 4th, John Gore Aston Martin 5th, Gregor Fiskin 6th. This for 7th, Porsche versus McLaren, and there's the Aston Martin of Andrew Howard, the ice cream man. Peach Ice Cream is his business right there behind. So Porsche, McLaren and Aston Martin, 3 delectable brands all squabbling together onto Hanger Straight. But again, you see David Ashburn is just struggling for pace against those cars around him, and notably against his teammates who are really scarpering now. John Minshaw under attack from Tom Sharp. Ashburn in the white spotty Porsche down towards Stowe, and Gregoire de Moustier is going to go all the way round the outside of the Von Ryan Racing McLaren. This is Sharp against Minshaw at the end of Vale. Ginetta on the outside line, can he go through? Not there, but if it's the inside for Club it might work, but he got hung out to dry on the curb, so now John Gore in the Aston Martin might be able to pounce. fabulous battling going on, but the lead battle is coming down and down. It was 3.3 seconds, it is now down to 9/10. Ben Hetherington, the quickest man on the circuit. Last lap was a 2:07, and he's almost up on the back of Marco Attard. Marco, many years racing in Ferraris. He has been a BMW racer within the last 12 months, also had a go in a Lamborghini in the championship last year. Goes well in this car. I think he would admit he's not as quick as Hetherington. The car shared by Oliver Bryan, that BMW, so it's got good pace from its two drivers, but Ben Hetherington at the moment, much quicker than anybody else out there. He wants to lead, understandably. The Fortec Motorsport run. Mercedes dives at the inside for the lead. Attard gives him plenty of racing room there. If you want to lead that much, chap, you go for it, says Marco. And Ben Hetherington takes over the lead and starts to edge away also as they come through Luffield now. So the Mercedes, that is United Autosports, McLaren in strife. It's the 24. The door opens, and that is Mark Blundell getting out of it. He's had a torrid season, and he's come to grief. You can see the damage on the car. That is at Aintree by the look of it. Bodywork all over the road. There's another car involved in that somewhere, I suspect. So drama on the new part of the circuit, and 41 may well have been the other one involved. That's Derek Johnston. He's showering gravel all over the road. Dear oh dear. United Autosports with a lot of damage, and that is Richard Sykes' Ginetta. That potentially was the other car involved. That makes more sense, doesn't it, because there's no front to it, and Richard Sykes, having shed bodywork, may well have been the man to get involved with Mark Blundell when the cars got themselves together. And we are going safety car. We're going safety car, so the boards are out. Let's have a look and see what happened. Right, there's the Ginetta in the background, trying to get up the inside. It snakes, and Mark Blundell's McLaren comes across the middle, and there was a pincer manoeuvre on the Ginetta. Derek Johnston in the Ferrari is involved. That Ginetta with a lot of damage. The McLaren ends up spinning. It looked as though, as Mark got the power down, the back just broke away a little bit and spat him into the path of the Ginetta. It's not just cars in dangerous places that has brought this safety car out. It is also the fact that there's lots of bodywork, and that can do puncturing of tyres. Not good. So safety car is deployed, and Mark Blundell goes to assess the damage. That, I think, is the last we're going to see of that car. Let's have another look, if we can, at that replay, because it was the McLaren on the outside getting a bit crossed up that seemed to be the catalyst at that corner. 41 is in the pits with its damage, Derek Johnston. So that car we know was involved. Here we go again. Right, the McLaren in the background, look. The McLaren goes a little bit wide. There's the power, and it snaps away. As the turbo kicks in, perhaps, the car does seem to break away into the path of the Ginetta, which gets into the path of the Ferrari. Richard Sykes' Ginetta gets squeezed in the middle, hence all the damage. Maybe something broke on the McLaren that caused that spin. Mark Blundell not in a hurry to try to rejoin the race. Maybe he felt something break as the car snaked off. And another one in drama is Dom Evans in the Blendini Motorsport Audi he shares with Tom Roach. Going off under the safety car doesn't tend to win you many friends. It's all happening, and there's still 2 3/4 hours of racing to go at Silverstone in round 4 of British GT. Don't miss it. Rejoin us here after the break. You're looking at a very disappointed Mark Blundell. He, in part, is the reason that we are behind the safety car here at Silverstone in round 4 of the Avon British GT Championship. David Addison and Gary Champion at Silverstone. Gary in the pits, no doubt ready to have a word with the team in due course about what happened, because there you can see a stricken McLaren. We're behind the safety car. It all kicked off coming out of Aintree. The McLaren, if you look at the top of the shot, you'll see in a split second goes sideways. As it goes left, it hits Richard Sykes' Ginetta, which hits Derek Johnston's Ferrari, which gets turned sideways, which hits the McLaren, which then spins. Thankfully, more cars not involved, but you can see the amount of debris that goes all over the road, and with a crippled McLaren going no further, then the safety car is needed to help the marshals get cars off the track and get all the bodywork off the circuit as well. Still, the more I look at it, the more I think something may have broken in the McLaren to pitch it sideways rather than it just with the turbo kicking in. But now we're behind the safety car, many of the teams, I think, are going to start to think about pit stops. A driver can do a minimum of 80 minutes over the course of the race, and the maximum of 100, and now you're starting to see people putting a bit of fuel in while they can do it under the safety car, because they will lose less time relatively. A refueling and driver change stock for a GT3 car has to be a minimum of 130 seconds. You have seen coming in the Von Rahm Racing McLaren. This is 007, Andrew Howard at the wheel of it. He will stay behind the wheel, I suspect. But they can put the fuel in now, because 130 seconds while you're behind the safety car loses you less time than under, obviously, green flag conditions. 29's having a driver change look, and that therefore puts Matt Griffin into the car now. Matt, we know, is a bit of a hero in a Ferrari. 48, Charles Putnam in the car that he shares with fellow American Charles Espenlaub. They're here really testing for next week's Blancpain Endurance Series race. Quick word about Matt Griffin, you saw getting into the Ferrari. He's aiming for 3 different championship wins in 3 weekends, because he won in the GT Open 2 weekends ago. Last week in ELMS at Imola, he wants to win British GT. 3 different weekends, 3 different championships. He wants 3 back-to-back wins if possible. Charles Espenlaub in the Pro Speed Porsche. Good to have Pro Speed in British GT, the Belgian team, mainstays of the Blancpain Endurance Series. Richard Sykes Ginetta, I think, was rejoined with a new front bodywork section. We've had the Richard Ambler Mark Poole Aston Martin in as well, and new tyres going on to 007 Aston Martin. At the moment, the race is led by the Mercedes of Ben Hetherington. John Gore's Aston Martin is second, having started 19th on the grid. John Minshaw's Porsche third, Tom Sharp's Ginetta fourth, Greg Wilder-Bustier's McLaren fifth, Gregor Fiskin's Porsche sixth. That's how they were over the line, but some of those cars were making pit stops at the time, so the order now will be jumbled again. You got a glimpse just a moment ago of one of the 2 Chevrolet Camaros with Nicky Pastorelli and Duncan Houseman as the 2 quick drivers in those cars. We have a GT4 class within the race. We can just find a moment to mention it now while the safety car is out, because there's so much to go on in this race. It's part of the new European GT4 series, not a championship as such. You score points internally. It's a peripatetic series that will tag on to races at different events, and this is the first race within it this weekend. It heads to Sweden, heads to Belgium, heads to Zandvoort over the course of the season, and it's brought some good cars, good names, with Aston Martin, with BMW, Chevrolet, Lotus and Porsche, one of the rare GT4 Porsches, in fact, in the race, to keep an eye to as well. We'll see those cars as the race wears on. Riding with Ben Hetherington, you can see the debris on the road there from the outside shot. You saw what it looked like from on board as well. It's taking a bit of time to get the recovery vehicle over to Aintree. Surprises me, actually. There is Derek Johnston, who is at the end of the pit lane, or at least his car is. Did Derek stay behind the wheel of it? Let us see. No, Jake Rattenbury, I think, has taken over in 41. Yes, he has. Jake Rattenbury, but that car has got a problem. We'll come back to the Ferrari, because Andrew Howard has done his first stint. He's about to have some ice cream and share it with Gary Champion.
Well, I wish he would share the ice cream with me, to be honest, and I think he deserves one. Carnage out there.
Yeah, I've got to say, it's if ever I was to do touring cars, at least I'd be ready for it. It turns out 4 into 1 doesn't really go. So it is, you know, it's a GT, it's a 3-hour race. Just a bit difficult, really.
It's a marathon, not a sprint, I think is what they say.
Well, yeah, and the whole point of these cars is that, you know, we're all going to get back in them. We're double stinting. It's about, especially with the AMs, and we should just be looking to bring the car back, really. So it's difficult, but saying that, thoroughly pleased with our car. So it's good, and we survived. And unfortunately, in GT racing at the moment, survival seems to be the first point of order.
Okay, great. Thanks, Gary. Enjoy your ice cream. We'll be there in a minute. David Addison, back to you.
Thanks, Gary. Should explain, Andrew Howard is the man behind Beach Dean Dairy Ice Cream, and the point he makes about having to survive is well made, because through no fault of Andrew's, largely if there's an incident going in British GT, he seems to be in it. He was unlucky here last year, he was unlucky at Alton Park when he got harpooned by John Minshaw. He's had his own dramas, but thankfully he's kept out of trouble in that first stint, and that car looks good for the remainder of the race. Zach Brown in 23 pits, and he shares this car with Alvaro Perret. Remember, they won at Donington at the back end of last season. Alvaro Perret, one of the McLaren factory drivers. They don't come much quicker in a McLaren than Alvaro, former British Formula 3 champion, and that car is going to fly. It was 7th when Zach Brown brought it into the pit lane. Of course, the order changing all the time while we're behind the safety car like this. You get the feeling it's going to be quite a lengthy one. Just for the moment, while the recovery vehicle is sent to the incident zone, while the marshals are given clearance with such a long field. And of course, part of the problem is with people pitting like this, it's harder for the marshals to find enough time and clear track space to run out on the track and get the debris, because there are people after pit stops still making up the ground. There they are, brave marshals now sprinting out onto the track, many of them, one piece of bodywork each, McLaren being craned away, and of course all the marshals volunteers, without whom we couldn't go racing. So they're doing brave and sterling work to get the track clear, ready to go racing. United Autosport stopwatches counting to 130 seconds for a GT3 car. Does, to be fair, include pit in to pit out, so the speed and the time down the pit lane has to be factored into the calculations as well. That's the leader, the Demon Tweaks, liveried four-tech run Mercedes. Jason and John Minshaw brothers. Alan Minshaw, their father, no mean racer himself for many, many years. He is the man that founded Demon Tweaks, and you'll see the familiar Tweaks logo on the Mercedes and on John Minshaw's Trackspeed Porsche lower down the order. And Ben Hetherington, who's not been racing for that long, but he's crammed in a huge amount of racing, as is his brother Freddie, into a short space of time. He's the man behind the wheel. John Gore behind, former Caterham champion, many years ago, sales manager for Walker's Crisps, these days sales director of Aston Martin Racing. Natural progression. And he is the man who runs in second place. He shares the car with Phil Driver, who is not as quick, so that car will drop down again. But again, it shows what the quick drivers can do against the AMs in this first stint. Field turning its way down towards Brooklands. Zach Brown's just got out of his car, one of the UA cars that has survived the first stint. Gary, he's at the pits with you.
He is indeed, David. Zach out of the car. The carnage wasn't involving you, but it did involve one of the other boys with Mark, your teammate.
Yeah.
One of the cars in the team.
Yeah, unfortunately, I recognized the car when I saw it on the side of the road. I have no idea what happened, but there was carnage kind of everywhere. It looks like there might have been another car involved, just by the amount of debris. So that's unfortunate. No clue what happened, but we have a good race. So
no word yet from Mark out in the car?
No, because I didn't have any communication with anyone. The team said he's all right, so the damage doesn't look too bad, so I suspect he's okay.
And how was your first bedding in stint?
It was good. It was a bit manic out there. Everyone was, as they say in the States, rubbing's racing, and they were rubbing and we were racing.
Doesn't sound like you were the gentleman driver at all then.
Yeah, they got to come up with a new phrase, maybe something like lunatics, because gentlemen no one was.
Quite posh, perhaps. Quite posh driver, that's what we're at. Yeah, great. Zach, thanks very much indeed. David, let's get back to you.
Gary, thanks. You're looking at Zach Brown walking away ready for his second stint. Everybody must make 3 pit stops under the regulations. Ben Hetherington leading the way. Quite a good idea at the moment to get the driver change done and lose less time under the safety car, but you've got to be careful you don't go over the maximum time allowed for a driver. Marshall's now sweeping the cement dust onto liquid in order to soak up anything slippery and nasty that's been spilt on the road, and now drivers having to weave around to maintain the temperature in the Avon tyres. Look at that for a sight, pouring onto Hanger Straight. Zach Brown with Paul Haig there from United Autosports. Paul, whose race engineering career goes back decades. There's barely a team or a category he's not been involved in. Huge enthusiast of the Yorkshireman, and has been loyal to Richard Dean's teams, single-seater or sports car, for a long, long time now. And he's another mainstay of United Autosports. Talking to one of the 2 team bosses, of course, is Zach Brown and Richard Dean, the American and Yorkshire influence that make up United Autosports, and their surviving cars running strongly. We're on lap 10 at Silverstone, and round 4 of the Avon Tyres British GT Championship will continue after the break. Welcome back to Silverstone. We're getting ready to go racing once again in round 4 of the Avon Tyres British GT Championship. Why we're behind the safety car, an incident that has eliminated Mark Blundell and Jody Firth's McLaren, is the real reason for it, because coming out of Aintree there was contact between McLaren, Richard Sykes, Ginetta, Derek Johnston's Ferrari. McLaren ended up in the middle of the road and bodywork scattered around Silverstone. That's taken a bit of sweeping up. It's all now done. The Nissan safety car with former racer John Quartermain at the wheel comes now through the end of Vale, and the safety car will be in this time. Lots of people have pitted under the safety car, and the best placed of the stoppers is Ollie Bryant, who has taken over from Marco Attard, who did lead the race early on anyway, and the Ecurie Cos BMW is in 24th place, but the best of those that have made a pit stop will go back racing this time. Many have not pitted, so the order you're looking at, which is the correct overall race order, is a little bit jumbled. It's Ben Hetherington in the Mercedes ahead of John Gore's Aston, ahead of Tom Sharp's Ginetta. This is the accident. Mark Blundell's McLaren spears across the road, harpoons the Ginetta of Richard Sykes in the middle. That got pincered between the McLaren and Derek Johnston's Ferrari. The more I look at it, the more I think something must have broken on that McLaren, because it sits down pretty low when it finishes its spin, and Mark Blundell didn't even try to drag it off the road, so maybe he was aware that something had broken and it was pointless even trying to move the car, and it did have to be craned up onto a high-ab rather than towed off the circuit. So I think it was a breakage. Mark Blundell doesn't often make mistakes like that. That car damaged in testing, damaged and couldn't race at all, part damaged again. He's not having a happy season, nor sadly is Mark Blundell. So Ben Hetherington leads, John Gore is behind him, Then you've got Tom Sharp in the Ginetta, and the Tartan Porsche of Gregor Fiskin running 4th ahead of David Ashburn 5th, and 6th is Klaus Hummel in the second Fortec Mercedes, the white Mercedes you will see at the back of the shot there, and we are just about ready to go racing. This is the end of lap number 11. We're back racing at Silverstone as the green flags fly. Ben Hetherington leads John Gore. Mercedes leads Aston Martin down to Copse Corner. John Gore makes his move on the inside, touches the curve. He's determined to try to put himself ahead of the Mercedes if at all possible. He needs to get that car up the order to help his slower co-driver Phil Driver. Is he going to go through? Yes, he is. And look at Tom Sharp looking for a way to get past the Mercedes as well. Our third different leader then is John Gore. Aston Martin takes over from Mercedes. The Ginetta, though, in the hands of Tom Sharp, right there with them. Then Gregor Fiskin in 4th place. He's riding with Hetherington as he comes now out of the Beckett's Esses onto the Hanger Straight. Down they head towards Stowe Corner. Fiskin is 4th, David Ashburn 5th, in 6th place is Klaus Hummel, then the blue Ginetta 7th, that's Ian Stinton, and in 8th place Mark Patterson there in the United Autosports Audi 25 that he shares with Matt Bell. And Matt, we know, is a very, very quick GT driver, so you don't rule him out of the equation either. Stinton's blue Ginetta challenging Klaus Hummel, Hummel challenging David Ashburn. There is something not right with that spotty Porsche for my money. David Ashburn doesn't give away places, and the pace the car has got is not impressive. I don't believe he's driving to a preordained pace with that car. I know Nick Tandy is a hero and he's going to drag it back up the order, but David Ashburn, I would have thought, he's losing too much ground early on in that car. When he's done his stint, I want to send Gary Champion to that part of the pit lane and find out what the real story is. David doesn't give much away, I'll grant you, but we might get to the bottom of it. Johnny Adam in the 007 Aston Martin working his way through traffic now. Phil Keane further up the road in 33 has taken over the Stephen Tweaks Porsche from John Minshaw. Number 80 Aston Martin has now got Richard Abrett at the wheel. He's taken over from Mark Poole. And there is contact because the GT4 leading BMW gets assaulted by the number 11 Audi, the car that was started in the race by Dom Evans. And it was Ricardo van der Ende in the BMW. Well, an Audi R8's a big, strong car, but it just bounced off the BMW, didn't it? Down Wellington Straight they go. So, all action in the GT4 class. So, as they work their way down towards Brooklands, we'll just make sure. There is Ricardo van der Ende in the class leading car. In fact, it was the sister BMW, wasn't it? Because there are 2 in the class. And so it was the Jan Joris Verheul car that was attacked. Ricardo van der Ende survives. But either way, those BMs are very solid cars indeed. Jan Joris Verheul sharing with Peter Christian Van Oranje, one of the 2 Van Oranje runners in the race, the Dutch Royals, the Dutch Princes, who are big motor racing enthusiasts. There turning through is car 18, which is the Rob Bath Ferrari. Well, Ollie Bryant in a hurry in 79. He's taken over from Marco Attard. Let's hear about Marco's first stint with Gary in the pit lane.
Yeah, thanks very much, David. Well, we're in the garage. There's slightly more action here in the garage than there is out on the pit front, actually, to be honest. Marco, how was that first stint?
Yeah, it was really good, actually. I was very, a little bit worried to start with, a bit hairy and all that, but I think once those lights go green, you just concentrate on what you've got to do. And I had David Ashburn just sort of got me on the first corner, I think it was, he got me there. And then we managed to get some speed back through Beckett's and Nuggets and then down Hanger Straight. Outbraked him and just managed to get it back. And it was good from there. It was, steady stint. It was, a bit heavy on fuel, but, it was good. It went well.
Yeah, a little stuck in traffic, the car at the moment, after that safety car.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully for our best plans, we come in, change over to Ollie, put him out, and that hopefully should work well for us. We are stuck in traffic. Hopefully we should get through those. Hopefully the blue flags will be out and we can get back to where we should be.
Great. Okay, thanks very much indeed, Marco Attard. Back to you, David.
Thanks, Gary. So we also, while we were talking to Marco Attard, seen Duncan Tappy heading slowly through Luffield and back into the pit lane. That's the second stop for that car. He's taken it over from Craig Wouter-Buskier, and the Von Ryan Racing McLaren, therefore, is not a happy car. It's 38th and clearly with a problem. So I said pre-race that was a possible winner. Duncan Tappy, very, very quick single-seater driver, now making a name for himself in GT racing, but disappointing British GT debut. Let's hope they can get back out and they can salvage some places before the end. John Gore, fastest man on the circuit now. He leads by just over a second from Ben Hetherington's Mercedes there in second place. Tom Sharp's dropping back a bit third, Gregor Fiskin dropping back a bit fourth, and it's quite a big margin between the leading quartet and Klaus Hummel's white Mercedes that runs in fifth place at the moment as the cars work their way up towards the Beckett's S's once again. This is lap number 14 we are working at the moment, and it's Aston Martin versus Mercedes here in GT at Silverstone. Number 3, Hector Lester, up into 11th place. Remember, he was in the gravel early on and he fell to 40-something or other. Well, because he stayed out there, the car is now back up into 11th place, but it'll drop down again soon because they've got to make the long pit stop. Alan Simonson will get behind the wheel, so it's 11th, but it's a false 11th for the time being. 79 in the mix is Ollie Bryant. And you've also got in this traffic jam behind Hector Lester the Demon Tweaks Porsche look of John Minshaw. Now Phil Keane at the wheel of it, and an effort made on the inside line there in 18, gaining ground, which is Rob Barth, who has taken the car over, has he? Yes, from Gary Eastwood. And Rob at the moment is the best placed of those that have made a pit stop. He won't be for long, I fear, because Phil Keane and Johnny Adam are bearing down on him. Hector Lester running out of sequence there. He's on the lead lap, but he's out of position because he's not pitted. Gets mugged by Keane. Johnny Adam comes up on the inside, and behind them is Oliver Bryant in the Ecuria Cost BMW. Now, we saw a little while ago Dom Evans in the Audi clanging off the side of Jan Joris Verheugen, as it was proved to be, and this is what happened heading up towards Village. There was a gap on the inside, but the BMW turned in, and crunch up the inside goes the Audi R8, and the BMW just doesn't miss a beat, carries on. It was the Audi that got turned sideways, and Jan Joris Verheugen swats aside the Audi and continues on his way in GT4. Village and the Loop, certainly the place where the drama comes. There's another of the Audis, number 10, the car that went so strongly at Rockingham. Rembert Berg and Warren Hughes, they finished second in the 2-hour race there. And the car at the moment has got Warren Hughes behind the wheel of it, which means he's taken over from Rembert Berg. And it's the M Sport Run car. Malcolm Wilson's team, John Wickham, oversees the race operations, and you don't rule that car out either. Rembert Berg, much underrated driver and going strongly. And Warren Hughes, of course, who's raced just about everything there is to race. Very, very competitive. Whatever you put him in, he makes it go well. That could be another potential victor. Hector Lester losing another place now. Alvaro Perret goes past him. That's another potential winning car, isn't it? There are so many of them in British GT this year. Perret's now up into 16th place. And Hector Lester was 17th, but he's now 18th because Michael Caine, the reigning champion, we've not yet mentioned him really, is up into 17th spot. Michael this year sharing the car with Ahmed Al-Hati, the man from Oman, who won Pro-Am 1 in the Carrera Cup GB last year. They are considered to be an exotic driver pairing, reigning champion and somebody who's been a class champion in Porsche racing, so they get an extra 75 kilos of ballast, which makes the team owner Dave Bartram rather grumpy. It does certainly mean that life is harder for them, but Michael Caine rising to the challenge here and working his way up the pecking order. How is Matt Griffin getting on? Because we saw him taking over from Duncan Cameron, and that car has gone back to Duncan Cameron, interestingly, according to the timing screen, in 27th place, but the car has made 2 pit stops. That's a bit surprising that it's made 2, unless there was a drama. I'm also not convinced Duncan Cameron would be behind the wheel, unless this is some demon plan that AF Corsa has got. We'll need to try and get on top of that if we can. It's Gary's next port of call, possibly. AF Corsa's pit, see what's going on with car 29. If it's got a problem, then that's a great, great shame. They are on the lead lap, but they've made 2 of the pit stops already. And is that because of a problem, or is that clever strategy? You've got to make 3, get them out of the way early is one option, but again, you've got to factor in the driving time allowed for each of the 2 drivers. There was only one 3-driver entry, and that was because one driver was thought to be ill and may not race, but that team in the end has sorted itself out to a 2-driver team, so everybody, just 2 drivers for 3 hours of racing. Ollie Bryant on the back of Richard Abra, heading down Wellington Straight. Aston Martin with a huge rear wing on the back, fending off the BMW. There they are. Abra breaks for Brooklands, and Ollie Bryant, another driver who's got very good pedigree in historic racing, looks for a way past him, but Warren Hughes is bearing down on them. It's going to be fascinating to see how long it takes the Audi to go through. The Audi R8 in the background, one of the later versions. In other words, it's an R8 LMS Ultra. A few tweaks and a better aero package. Driving standards flag being shown to 408, which was started by Adam Christodoulou, and Adam is still behind the wheel of it. Back racing in Europe after his single-seater spell in America. Abra, meantime, still under big pressure from Ollie Bryant through the Beckett's S's. Now, this is a proper battle for position, don't forget. It's 12th, 13th and 14th. Don't rule out Warren Hughes, who's behind them. And Bryant takes a better line through Beckett's. Richard Abra, who's raced in the Britcar Championship. He's raced in the Aston Martin GT4 Series, race instructor, but now racing at this level for the first time, and he's got some real stars around him. This is Dom Evans into the pit lane. The Blendini Audi. Out he gets. In will get Tom Roach, who runs the team and is very much the man to beat, or has been in recent years in Mazda MX-5 racing. Ollie Bryant heads down through Vale. He's got himself up past Richard Abra. Warren Hughes thought about making a move on the inside. He needs to crack on with it, though, doesn't he? Because he's got bearing down on him now as well, Alvaro Parent. Jay Palmer has taken over from Matteo Bobby, and he's running a little bit further behind this gaggle of cars. But the leading 8 have yet to make a pit stop, and John Gore staying out for as long as he possibly can to try to build up a lead, but Ben Hetherington is staying with him. Hetherington and Jason Minshaw make an evenly matched combination of drivers. Again, this is all part of the fascination of GT racing, where you've got cars that are suited to different circuits better than others, you've got drivers that are quicker than others, and then even taking the Pro and the AM sections, you can work out, that's a good argument, who the quicker AMs are, put them in order, who the quicker Pro drivers are, and so things are happening all the way through the race. News from the pits we get is that Von Ryan Racing's McLaren had damage, and the damaged parts are being repaired and replaced. Hopefully the car will get back out again, but it has now dropped that car to 41st place and is starting to lose laps as well while the damage is sorted out. The quickest car on the circuit at the moment is Tom Sharp. We're looking at battles going on in GT4, where you've got Ginetta battling with Aston Martin. Ginetta with a strong representation in both of the classes here. And the Alex Osborne Ginetta ahead of Steve Chaplin's Aston Martin was the situation. The Pro Speed Porsche, Charles Espenlaub, goes through, and that is in 21st place at the moment, being chased by the number 4 Ferrari that was started by Phil Burton. That's got Adam Wilcox now in the hot seat. And the team manager of car 27 is being summoned to the race director. That's Matteo Bobbi's Vita 4-1 Team Italy Ferrari. Might be to do with the transponder, because that's got a little glitch in it at the moment. Meantime, John Minshaw's car, Phil Keane at the wheel of it, comes down towards the end of Vale, and the Demon Tweaks Porsche getting itself now onto the back of Rob Barth, who's taken over from Gary Eastwood. There into the pit lane for a driver change comes the Jack Dwyver Charlie Hollings FF Corsa Ferrari. Jack Dwyver, the Belgian, big track day enthusiast, who's a relatively recent convert to racing, and he hands over the car. John Gore, race leader, cannot shake off Ben Hetherington, can he, as they work their way down through Brooklands. 2 hours and 17 minutes, I should say, are on the clock, and the leading 2 with only a second between them as they come now out towards Woodcote. This is the Mark Blundell accident in replay once again, and you can see the way the car snaps sideways, pincers the Ginetta in the middle. Fair play to the other Fortec Aston of Klaus Hummel that got out of the way, and he of course has risen up the order with people falling off the road ahead of him and other people pitting. That is Phil Keane, who's now off the road, 33, and he was in 10th, and he was up on the tail of Rob Barth, wasn't he, when we last saw him? That's coming out of Aintree, and there is that the Gregor Thiskin Porsche as well. We could have lost 2 track speed cars here in one move. There's debris in the road, and we'll get a replay in a moment as Phil Keane walks away, but there might be a bit of explaining to do here. This could be another safety car, couldn't it? Because there you can see one perched on the edge of the road. So it's all happening once again. We look at one incident and another suddenly breaks out. There's the leading duo, and John Gore is being caught again by Ben Hetherington out of Stowe. Down through Vale they come now. Tom Sharp in 3rd place. He's trying to go with them in the orange Ginetta. There he is in the background. The car he shares with Colin White, multiple national hot rod champion Colin. Through Club Corner, Ben Hetherington in the red and white Mercedes on the tail of John Gore. Nose to tail. They're on board with Hetherington now, heading down towards the right at Abbey, the flick left at Farm, and then they're going up towards Village. They're heading now into that yellow flag zone created by the track speed Harry Carey that we've just seen. So Aston Martin, Mercedes and Ginetta, these are the 3 leaders. They're going to have to slow under the yellows. Right, what happened then? There is Phil Keane in 33, and Fiskin slows, and on the inside goes Phil Keane. There wasn't quite enough of a gap. The Porsche suddenly slowed. Now, it might have had a puncture, but it went so slowly. Rob Bath was able to jink one way. Phil Keane had to take evasive action the other. The lead changes. Hetherington goes through on the inside. But if Gregor Fiskin had a puncture, and that's why the car suddenly slowed, very unlucky for Phil Keane, because he was almost through that very narrow gap, just glanced off, got airborne, and so there are 2 damaged cars. John Gore for the pit lane then. He's led. He's done a very good job of getting the car up the order, and so in comes number 6. He just lost the lead anyway to Ben Hetherington. Tom Sharp brings the Ginetta in as well. God, it's all happening, isn't it? And there's 2 1/4 hours to go. Down the pit lane comes Tom Sharp. That was the car that became an inferno at Alton Park. He'll hand it over to Colin White. There is Gregor Fiskin, who, having been biffed off the road, has gone a long way off into the gravel. Phil Keane off as well, but I'm just waiting to see whether or not those cars are retrievable or whether we need the safety car again. Right in front of the commentary box here is the Chief Flag Marshal, and he has a yellow flag in his hand, and his assistant has a big board with SC on it, and there's more mayhem at Cops because, is that Rob Bath getting in problems? It's one of the Ferraris, I think it is, isn't it? 18, the Gary Eastwood car, Rob Bath at the wheel of it. So there's more drama at turn 1. The Ferrari rejoins. Certainly the officials are getting ready, and so too is Nick Tandy there, who is looking at the monitors, and we're now down to just 1 track speed Porsche. He will take over from David Ashburn, and where is David in all of this? 5th overall at the moment. So Ben Hetherington leads the race at present. Looking good for Mercedes, and also carving through traffic is Alvaro Parent, look, having taken over from Zach Brown. The Portuguese driver through on the inside then, goes ahead of Ollie Bryant. So that's a change between McLaren and BMW. There's Warren Hughes tagged onto the back of it as well. And you've also seen there, look, Michael Caine, number 1, on the back of Richard Abra. The order is changing all the time, corner by corner. And we go safety car once again. The boards are flying at Silverstone. We've gone safety car once more because of the 2 track speed Porsches off coming out of Aintree. So for the second time in the first hour of the race, the safety car is deployed. And everybody now will have to slow down. Same part of the circuit, pretty much. And those that haven't pitted are going to come in. There's Matt Griffin getting ready to go. And animated conversation with the AF Corsa Ferrari team about what's going on. So Matt Griffin will take over from Duncan Cameron. And the pit lane is about to become oh so hectic. Well, Ben Hetherington leads the way and has yet to pit. And how long will he continue out there before Jason Minshaw gets on board the car? Other teams cycling through pit stops here. Regulation 3, while the safety cars are being deployed. And we have Hetherington, the leader. Klaus Hummel, his teammate, is second. So in other words, we've now got a Fortec Mercedes 1-2. David Ashburn is in the pits, in fact. As that is David Ashburn in the pit lane, who has crashed, having, I don't think, he's not slowed down enough, and he's lost it by the look of it coming into the pit lane. That is right in front of race control. It's ripped a wheel off the car, so that's the end of track speed. There's David Ashburn getting out, and all 3 cars eliminated in accidents. And David Ashburn, I suddenly saw a marshal getting ever so animated in the pit lane, and now I know why. It's because we've had an accident in the pits. That's after the pit lane speed limit has started. Now, is there anybody else involved in that? Looking down from where I am, I don't think there is. There's lots of bodywork lying on the ground coming into the pit lane, which you can see where the marshals are there trying to sweep it all up. And now people coming into the pit, so they've got marshals and bodywork in front of them, and this is absolute pandemonium. But whether David Ashburn got a touch or whether he lost it, I don't know. But there's the wheel off. Absolutely incredible scenes, and those very, very brave marshals are trying to clear everything up. That gate has been hit. Now, I reckon the Porsche has hit that, but whether David Ashburn lost it as he braked or whether he was hit from behind, I don't know. We haven't seen that bit. Whether anybody else has been involved, I don't know. David Ashburn will have to tell the story. That the car is crippled. David Ashburn's in the black overalls there, and Gary is there. Go on, Gary, let's have the story.
Well, David, very busy, I know. What on earth happened there? That's unbelievable.
It's my mistake. I was looking for the pit limiter, and then obviously I got too quick in, and then I lost it to simply hit the wall.
So you were looking down in the car, were you,
Yeah.
and to try and...
I was trying to put a speed limiter on.
Okay.
And then obviously I didn't see that.
And are you okay?
I'm fine, yeah. I'm fine. The car is not.
No, sure. Okay, thanks. But there you go, David, from the horse's mouth, and look at the mess that he has made of that car as well. It's if you can have such a thing as a pit lane accident, he's done a proper job.
Well done, Gary, for getting the story. Isn't it nice, though, when you have a driver like David Ashburn who is honest? He doesn't make excuses about, oh, something broke, it's my fault, my mistake. It's his team, and his team has been eliminated in the space of 2 laps. That's Nick Tandy, who was going to get a drive in that car and is now not. And Nick trudges away. So at least Phil Keane got a drive. Richard Westbrook never got into the car, and nor did Nick Tandy get in his car. So big drama. We lose an entire team in 2 laps, and of course the reason David Ashburn was pitting was because the safety car was out, because of the other 2 cars in the team having collided out at Aintree. There is a pit lane speed limit. You can have a limiter in the car, you flick it on and that kills the speed to make life easier if you find it. And poor old David Ashburn, former champion, keeps threatening to retire. Maybe that would have swayed his decision. I hope not, because David is a good man to have in the championship. He's normally a very quick driver. He does have his occasional moments, that's one of them, and it's perhaps the most embarrassing yet to have a huge accident coming into the pit lane, and the car has ended up right at the foot of the race control building. And anyway, David is okay, that's the good news, but it's made pit entry a little bit drama. Let's have another look at the other 2 cars. So Gregor Fiskin's out of shot, but he suddenly slows, look, coming through Aintree, and Phil Keane goes for a gap. Whoa, no gap, almost squeezed through, but because the Porsches have big fat flared wheel arches these days, there wasn't quite enough room, and he biffs up against the side of Gregor Fiskin, and the damage is on the right hand side that you can't see, but that will be suspension breakages as well. Those cars going nowhere, and Gregor Fiskin's car then gets punted out towards the gravel. Yesterday in qualifying, lots of teams moaning about the pace of track speed in its Porsches and saying, oh, it's going to be a Porsche race win. Well, one way to make sure they don't win is to ensure that they keep charging into each other. Now, the lead gap is 1 minute and 18 seconds because we don't have the leader behind the safety car. The leader has yet to stop as well. The leader, Ben Hetherington, is staying out there. He is the only car of note that has not yet made a pit stop, but the safety car has not got the leader behind him. We are going to have 14 in the leading car soon anyway, which will change things a little bit, but for the moment there is an enormous lead Ben Hetherington has over the rest because the safety car does not have the leader behind it. It'll all take some unravelling this, and we'll do that when you rejoin us after the break. Welcome back to Silverstone, round 4 of the Avon Tyres British GT Championship. It's a 3-hour race. You may not really understand that too well, given the driving standards. We have had mayhem out on track. We've not yet done an hour, and we have got quite a few cars with damage. We've got a very jumbled order. We've eliminated one team, and on track, car 14 led the race, but has pitted at exactly the moment that the safety car lets everybody else pass to try to pick up the race leader. So now things are going to get even more jumbled for the officials. The safety car was scrambled because of David Ashburn crashing in the pit lane. The safety car having also been deployed because 2 of his teammates had collided on track. That car, Ben Hetherington brought into the lead of the race and pitted. This is the car that is now up into 2nd place, Alvaro Parent. Question is, will the Mercedes get out of the pits before this car comes back towards the start and finish line? Alvaro Parent then hustling on to try to take over the lead. We've lost his teammate Mark Blundell from the race, and to find out why, let's join Gary Champion.
Yeah, we have to wait a little bit for Mark because he's had to walk back from the incident. What happened, Mark?
Basically, whoever was driving the Ginetta in front of me was slow off the previous corner, made a mistake, had to lift out the throttle pedal. I had to run on the race line and had a good closing speed on him, and I went directly down the inside of him into a 90-degree right-handed corner, cleanly down the inside. I had the corner, a very easy move, but the guy didn't want to give up and decided to stay all the way around the outside of me on the 90-degree corner. I mean, law of physics, I don't know where he expected me to put my car. and then still stayed down the outside of me, and then all the way off the racetrack, and then clipped the left-hand rear of my car and broke the uprights. I'm baffled. It's a 3-hour race. It's not a 15-minute race, it's a 3-hour race. You know, I overtook guys in the kerfuffle, and then they overtook me again. You're going to get them back over the distance. This, you know, I'm actually a little bit tired of it, because driving with some of those guys out there is not a lot of fun.
It's almost like touring cars now.
It's not even touring cars. It's about, you know, having a little bit of sense that 3 hours is 3 hours. When you get to the end of it, you've got a chance of winning. If you want to try and race in 15 minutes, go do something different. This is endurance racing. This is not the place for that kind of thing. And when you're beat into a corner fair and square, and I've just watched the footage several times in the in-car camera, it's the most direct, smoothest move you can see. You're done. Give up.
Well, I think we've got a telly here with Motors TV on it, look, so we can actually see the incident, so you can probably tell me. So at this point here, your car is already, I know, it's at the back there.
Yeah, that's not actually the incident.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, no,
happened by then.
Yeah, the incident actually happened the previous corner to that. And basically, the previous corner to that, the Ginetta come off slow, and then the right-hander in front of what you've just shown on TV there is where the actual accident happened. I was already beating the guy fair and square, hence why I was in front of him, obviously, but it broke my upright in trying to make sure that I didn't get the move made. I mean, this is madness. That's probably £70,000 of damage, and the end of the race, we've got 100 people here watching today. It's not the kind of racing I enjoy. I'm being very honest with you.
Mark, thank you very much. Alrighty, cheers. So there you have it. It wasn't as you saw him turn in there. The damage had already happened. By then, the damage had occurred because he'd been biffed on the corner before. That's what Mark Blundell is saying, David.
Thanks, Gary. That sort of confirms what I was suggesting the more I looked at it, that something had broken because of the way that Mark didn't even try to drag the car off the circuit, and as he's now explained, that it was a breakage, but because of earlier contact, which we didn't see. But yes, as the car snapped sideways, it wasn't Mark making a mistake, it was because there was already a breakage. So by a process of lots of strands, we've now tied it all together and we've got the story. The race is on lap 24, and this car has retained the lead, helped a bit by the safety car, you've got to say, but Jason Minshaw leads the way. He's taken over from Ben Hetherington, and there'll be a wry smile here because he's leading and his brother is out of the race. There's quite a bit of rivalry between the Minshaw brothers. They often cross swords in historic racing, in Jaguar E-types amongst other things, and they're always keen to prove who's the quickest. Jason leads, and Alvaro Parent is now in second place. Warren Hughes is third, and John Dillon is in fourth. Now the Nissan Duke safety car is in the middle of all of this, and it's desperately looking for a race leader. And when it's got a race leader, it can then slow the pack down. But the silliness then is that all the people that have been allowed past aren't going to get onto the Crocodile, so they're going to be on a slow lap when it's restarted, and the race leader's going to be up to full pace again, and it's all going to get ever more jumbled. So this, I'm afraid, by getting the wrong car to begin with, is going to be a little bit of a drama, especially for those that are only still being released. It'll take quite a while on a long lap like this to get everybody in the right order. You can't go flat out when you're behind the safety car, so these guys are never going to get a chance to catch up to the queue, which is going to be headed by the number 14 Mercedes. Down towards Brooklands they go. Now the safety car almost blocks people going down towards Brooklands. It does. So nobody gets through there, which doesn't help life. And up towards Luffield, and nobody being waved through either. So the race order is the number 14 Mercedes, Jason Minshaw at the wheel, having taken over from Ben Hetherington. Jason, who began in the XR Challenge at Alton Park and the Champion Formula Ford Series, had a spell in the Fiesta Series that supported touring cars in the 1990s, but in recent years, very much a historic racing frontrunner. You're on board with him now, and he's about, hopefully, to slot in behind the safety car. But all of these people are going to have quite a long wait in order to get themselves onto the back of the train. There's the leader through Copse. So the incident is pretty much cleared. Now the delay is in getting the race order sorted out. It's one of the perils of a big grid. The safety car is deployed to sort out an incident, but when it's scrambled as it was and he doesn't pick up the leader, it creates even more confusion. There in the pit lane is Alvaro Parent, You can see in the background the ignominious departure of David Ashburn's Porsche, and Alvaro Perret, I would imagine, is going to give back to Zach Brown now. There's no point having the quicker driver wasting his time behind the safety car. Right, everybody through. No, still the wrong car behind the safety car. The Aston Martin needs waving through. And finally, the race leader is in the right place behind the safety car. But 007 Aston Martin, which you've just seen, Andrew Howard back at the wheel of it, is going to have quite a long charge now to get back onto the tail of the race leader. You've got cars strung out. If they let the leader go soon, of course, he's going to be straight into traffic, which aren't under green flag conditions. Who'd be the race director when it's a situation like this? Remember, these stops for refuelling and driver change, 130 seconds in GT3. So, Jason Minshaw leading from Warren Hughes. Alvaro Perret was third, but he is pitted, so John Dillon will take over third. That is Phil Driver's Aston Martin back in. And also working up the order is 45. And this is a car that's not yet made any pit stops. Number 45 is a Ginetta G50 of Rory Bryant and Anthony Rogers, and that currently is in fourth place overall. Number 6 refueled. There is John Gore, who will get back in. These safety car periods, I think, are going against the Kinfound Racing team. Right, safety car with Q behind. Warren Hughes now into second there, looks going out a shot in the Audi, and third is going to be John Dillon. You're looking at number 1 Porsche, Ahmad Al-Hati back behind the wheel, and so the car loses a lap and it falls to 21st place. You're always going to get jumbled orders like this when the safety car is out and of course people are pitting. So Jason Minshaw having a relatively calm time at the moment. He's not done a proper racing lap in the car in the race because he's rejoined straight into a safety car period. We are now into the middle hour of the race. Through Luffield, and the opposition is going to come from Warren Hughes there, look, in the Audi, and behind in third place will be number 13 John Dillon. Now John is the slower of the two in the 13 Ferrari. Aaron Scott is his co-driver, and in comes Jason Minshaw. So the race leader comes in. This would get the second stop out of the way, and therefore he can do one more stop to give back to Ben Hetherington, and the car can go to the end. This could be quite an inspired move on the part of Trevor Foster, who runs the Fortec Mercedes. And door opens, door closes, and away goes Jason Minshaw. Now, was that clever strategy, or was that because they thought they might have had a loose door from the earlier pit stop? Either way, the car will rejoin, but that's going to lose it the lead, isn't it now? Because that's going to put Warren Hughes into the lead of the race, and once again, he won't be the leader behind the safety car, it'll be a back marker. Dear oh dear. I think the lights are out on the safety car. No, not quite, not yet. So I think a few more of the stragglers need to be allowed to catch up. Yes, Warren Hughes has pitted as well. That's the reason that he's not behind the safety car. So now the leader becomes number 13, John Dillon. And we're getting a drive-through penalty also being given for the John Gore Phil Driver Aston Martin for overtaking under yellow flags behind the safety car. So you've just seen a pit stop for the car, but it's going to get a drive-through as well, number 6. So it will fall further down the order. Down to the end of Vale comes the field. The order continues to be shuffled around, and of those that you can expect progress from on the restart, Marco Attard, Ollie Bryant, Marco Attard back at the wheel now in 6th spot. Now let's find out what Fortec was up to with that second stop for Jason Minshaw. Problem or a plan? Gary Champion can find out.
There you go, that's an easy phrase, Trevor. Problem or plan? I suspect you're being cunning.
Trying to be. We'll find out in 2 hours' time.
What's the thought process, without obviously revealing everything to the teams, that you're a brilliant strategist?
I wouldn't say that, no. Luck.
Okay. So the thought process behind it?
No, it's just really just a calculation, really, of making the best use of the strategy we can at the time. So, we just have to keep working our way through it, and hopefully we'll come out the other side in the right position.
Okay, great. Thank you very much indeed. David, maybe you can spread more light on the man that's playing cards close to his chest.
I'll have a go. You've got to make 3 mandatory stops, okay? They've now made 2. 1 to get Jason Minshaw into the car, 1 to open and close the door. The 3rd stop can be fuel and a driver change. In other words, they can put Ben Hetherington in and get him to the end of the race as a quick driver. So they only have to make 1 more stop if they get the calculation right on driver maximum time. So number 14, which is quick with Jason or quick with Ben Hetherington behind the wheel, only needs to do 1 more stop, whereas some cars that are competitive have to make 2 more stops. Others, granted, only have to make 1 anyway, but it's a clever way of trying to get the 2nd stop out of the way. That is not a car that has any extra time penalty in the 3rd stop anyway, so effectively what they've tried to do is give Jason a long stint, but break it up with that stop just to open and close the door, and also to give Ben Hetherington the final stint and therefore maximise the chance of winning the race. That's what I think they're up to, and as Trevor Foster suggests, we'll find out in a bit over 2 hours whether they're right. The fastest lap of the race is still held by Tom Sharp from earlier on, and his car is now at 5th with Colin White at the wheel. The race order, you saw it a moment ago, number 13 Ferrari, John Dillon, leading from number 14 Mercedes of Jason Minshaw. In 3rd place, number 45 Ginetta, yet to make 1 pit stop, Rory Bryant. In 4th place is Colin White's Ginetta. 5th, Marco Attard BMW, and 6th now Zach Brown back behind the wheel. I was right, they were putting him in, so you have the slower driver in under the safety car. At 7th is Mark Poole back at the wheel. 8th, Nathan Freak taking over from Ian Stinton. 9th is Steve Jans, the Luxembourg driver in the Mercedes, and 10th is Steve Tandy, who has taken over in 888 from Dan Brown. We've not really talked about that BMW yet, but it's a dark horse, Steve Tandy, one to watch. The safety car is going to be in this lap. So the race director, I think, has decided he's given everybody long enough to try to catch up. We can go racing once more. It's been a very long safety car period, this, but he's not been helped by everybody diving for the pit lane and jumbling up the order. So, John Dillon versus Jason Minshaw for the lead. 6 seconds is the margin betwixt the two, and inevitably there's going to be an awful lot happening once again. There's an old adage about safety cars breed safety cars, so now that you've got people out of sequence, it might kick off once again. There might be a bit more leaning and a few more dramas to come, but we shall see. You heard what Mark Van Dal had to say about driving standards, and no doubt that will be raised by Bernard Cottrell, the race director, at the next round of the championship, which goes to Snetterton next month. 1 or 2 of the teams are going to be here next weekend when round 2 of the Block Pan Endurance Series takes to Silverstone. It's going to be another fabulous 3 hour of GT racing. Right, there at the end of Vale is number 69 Ginetta, one of the GT4 cars, which now has James May at the wheel of it. Behind is the Declan Jones Ginetta, the Ginetta G50s that run within the GT4 class. Safety car in this time with 1 hour and 50 minutes of the race to run through Village. And as soon as the pack is released, there's going to be an awful lot happening when the cars blast their way down towards Copse Corner. In 403, which is another of the GT4 cars, the Ginetta G50 in the hands of Nigel Farmer. He shares with Henry Taylor. Henry graduate at the Silverstone Racing School many, many years ago. And the G50 that runs in the GT4 class, accelerating off now down towards Brooklands. Stacked up behind the safety car, all the weaving is going on to try to put the warmth back into the tyres, ready for the restart. And now heading down towards Brooklands for the 27th time. It's a long lap, of course, around Silverstone, the fastest lap of the race in 2 minutes 6. And that is the race order for now. It's all going to change at Copse. Through goes Ahmed Al-Harthi, number 1. 20th in the Motorbase Porsche. Safety car now for the pit lane, and we're about to go racing once more at the end of the 2nd safety car period. Down to Copse Corner, green flags fly, we're racing again in round 4 of the Avon Tyres British GT Championship. The race leader, number 13, John Dillon, through Copse Corner, and number 29, Ferrari, which is the Matt Griffin Duncan Cameron car, now a lap down. That needs to try to unlap himself if possible. Now Cameron should be quicker than Dillon, so he should be able to get himself back on the lead lap in this stint. and then put Matt Griffin into the car for the end. So there's still an awful lot to play for in this race as the cars turn out of the Beckett's S's once again. There, look, number 6 is John Gore, who is on track battling with Jason Minshaw, and it has kicked off at the first corner, because in the middle of all of that you've got an Aston, I think, in the gravel bed, and also rejoining was Mark Poole. This is Jason Minshaw working his way through traffic going down the Hanger Straight, and in 25 look desperately trying to stay in the mix, but a long way down at the moment is the Matt Bell Audi, 21st overall and a lap down. So that is a car trying to sprint back up the order and unlap itself, while the race leader John Dillon is still gaining speed once again. Jason Minshaw is in traffic, and behind him is Colin White. Now that's the battle for second place. Mercedes versus Ginetta, look. They're in traffic, very definitely. But they're going to be together coming out of Club Corner. And now Jason Minshaw on his first proper racing lap since he began his stint. He joined behind the safety car. Now he's going to have to work his way through the traffic and keep at bay Colin White in the Ginetta, and Colin White is used to working his way through traffic because, of course, from National Hot Rod Racing he had to do an awful lot of his overtaking from the back of a grid. There is 78 BMW that is about to join the race, I think for the first time. The Johnson's Ron and Piers BMW that's been missing for over an hour with its fuel pump problem. Looks like it's going to try and get a run. Now we've got a number of cars that are under investigation for short pit stops, and one of them is the leading Ferrari of John Dillon. Another of them is car 48, which is the Pro Speed Porsche, and another is number 80, the Barwell Aston we've just seen in grief at Copse Corner. So those cars are going to be, first of all, having the team managers sent to the race director, and then penalties may well follow, which will shake the order yet again. John Dillon still leads on track, but possibly with a penalty. Jason Minshaw is second, and Colin White there, look, on the inside, trying to wriggle his way through traffic, is third. And we have lost a car, look, at Copse Corner. It is the Aston, by the look of it, of Fabio Mocha and Mauro Diaz-Marquez that's in the gravel bed going no further. An hour and 3/4 remains, and John Dillon is not yet being caught by Jason Minshaw. Into the pits has just come, finally, the 45 Rory Bryant Ginetta that's been staying out there for this marathon first stint. And Matt Bell, quicker than anybody on the last lap in the last sector. 15 there, Steve Jans, a class winner in the Blancpain Endurance Series at the Nürburgring last year. Behind him on track, number 3 Ferrari, which was started by Hector Lester. It's got Alan Simonson at the wheel, and on pit stops that car has crept up into 8th place. That something gives them a bit more of a chance, doesn't it? Alan Simonson, who is one of the quickest drivers out there, and he's about to make a move as he on Steve Jans going to the end of the Hanger Straight. Meantime, the race leader John Dillon working his way through. There you can see Matt Bell, 19th now. His next target, Steve Wyatt in the Ferrari, just up ahead of him. And there's going to be a change here for 18th place as the cars head now up towards Village. Audi on the inside, gap closes. Turning right, turning left. This is the part of the circuit that did for Mark Blundell early on with Richard Sykes. In the background, Ahmed Al-Harthi in the number 1 Porsche. And there, number 4, which is the Phil Burton Ferrari, that's in 22nd place. Phil had also retired at the end of last year, but he's been tempted back with Adam Wilcox for his first outing, in fact, in this Ferrari 458 Italia for this race. The car's 22nd at the moment. Ahmed Al-Harthi looking to gain ground. Now there's the leader, that's John Dillon, 5 seconds to the good at the moment. Jason Minshaw chasing on behind him. We've done 29 laps at Silverstone in the 4th round of the Avon Tars British GT Championship. At Alton it was 2 1-hour races, Rockingham 1 2-hour race, and here a 3-hour race that has already been full of drama and incident and a touch of controversy, looking at the way that 1 or 2 drivers feel they've been treated with driving standards, at least from their rivals. Mark Blundell particularly grumpy. Stop-go penalty boards are being prepared in front of me because of these short pit stops. You have a stop-go to make up the shortfall. And there is the car in 3rd place, Colin White, who began what feels like 100 years ago in Bangor racing, but was very much the leading light in National Hot Rod racing from around about year 2000 on. And then he made the switch into circuit racing and let Carl Boardley take up the mantle in National Hot Rod racing. But Colin, very, very successful driver on the ovals, and now getting better and better in circuit racing, getting better and better all the time. There, 79, Marco Attard back behind the wheel. That car is 4th. Remember, he started, Ollie Bryan had a short stint, and then the safety cars precipitated putting Marco back in, and Zach Brown in the UA McLaren is behind him in 5th place. That McLaren, if you look closely, you'll see is a 2013 spec car, and the difference is that it's got a bigger rear wing and a longer front splitter and little supports as well that attach the front splitter to the car. It's also got a different wiring loom, and overall the car works better than last year. The aero certainly helps. That's the AF Corsa team watching what's going on with a fleet of cars. Really good to have AF Corsa in this championship. They've always been one of the top Ferrari teams, winning in the World Endurance Championship, the Le Mans Series, in Blancpain, now also in British GT. Good to have the team here and looking strong. And Matt Griffin was watching on as well, you saw there. Duncan Cameron, his regular co-driver in British GT Racing, is behind the wheel at the moment. They've switched from MTech to AF Corsa, which makes some sense because Matt drives for AF Corsa in lots of other championships, so there's this continuity across all of his racing. There is John Dillon, who is being caught by Jason Minshaw, the Mercedes in the background. John Dillon came out of club racing and has gone through Britcar with a lot of guidance from Aaron Scott, which has been very useful. Aaron is a very quick driver and has helped him to progress. The man on the move, though, lower down the order is Matt Bell, who's banging in quick sector times, left, right and centre, and he's hauling his car up into 16th place overall now. Matt Bell, 25, in the Audi R8 LMS Ultra, sharing with the American Mark Patterson. And there is 27. Now that was started by Matteo Bobbi. It is still Matteo Bobbi at the wheel, or rather it's gone back to being Matteo Bobbi. And 9th is where you find the Vita 4-1 Team Italy Ferrari. There was talk of the German element of the team, Michael Bartel's official Vita 4-1 squad being here. That's not happened, but even so, it is a superb entry. And as the cars turn their way up through the Beckett's S's, you've got in the middle of all of this Nathan Freak in the blue Ginetta he shares with Ian Stinton. Nathan Freak, former Formula 4 champion, team owner through Century Motorsport. Doesn't do enough racing, but whenever he does, goes quickly. And so Nathan Freak is in the middle of this battle. Steve Jans in the background in the white Mercedes. Matteo Bobbi up on the inside, and he's going to go through, is he? Yes, he is, into 7th place now. Alan Simonson is there with them as well, and he's going to be making progress. But Matteo Bobbi lapping quicker than Alan Simonson for the moment. Steve Jans busy flashing his lights at a sideways Nathan Freak, and Alan Simonson is right there. This is a rather crowded house, and it's the Mercedes that gets caught out. Steve Jans, the Luxembourg driver, gets sideways. Alan Simonson up on the inside. You can see the witness mark on the left door where Hector Lester got turned around early on in the race down at the end of Vale. 30 laps done by the leader, the lead gap coming down and down and down. I don't think anybody would have predicted that a battle for the lead was shaping up to be John Dillon, Jason Minshaw and Colin White, but that's what we have got. Proves you can never predict anything in GT racing. There's the Mercedes in 2nd place. The Ferrari that it is chasing is the red with the Italian colour scheme across the top of it car of John Dillon. And how are the lap times shaping up? Minshaw quicker than Dillon, Colin White quicker than Dillon but not as quick as Minshaw, and then Marco Attard lapping a bit slower, but Nathan Freak, Steve Jans, Alan Simonson, Matteo Bobbi all lapping quicker than the race leaders. So ultimately the concertina effect is taking shape now for the race lead. Jason Minshaw going through Woodcote over the timing line, and yellow flags wave up the road. That I think is to get the Aston Martin out of the gravel at Copse Corner. The gap is 1.3 seconds. It won't be long before the Demon Tweaks Mercedes is up on the back and indeed getting past John Dillon's Ferrari. Behind it is the Tom Roach Audi that we saw getting involved with BMWs earlier on in the race. Jason Minshaw has a big bite of curb there going up through the Beckett's S's. That's Phil Burton just up ahead of him. 2 Northwest drivers together. Jason from just near Chester, Phil Burton from the Wirral, and the 2 of them onto Hanger Straight now, down towards Stowe Corner. Of course, Jason's got to lap 1 Ferrari, but he's really catching the one ahead of it for the race lead. Down towards Stowe Corner, Jason Minshaw to the outside line as he has to work his way through yet more traffic. Phil Burton not yet hopping out of the way. John Dillon, the race leader, being bought a little bit of time here as Jason Minshaw in the Mercedes has to work his way through. Gets back on the power now, sprinting his way through the long right of Club and powering his way now up towards the right at Abbey, the left at Farm. The next very, very fast sequence of corners. There's a lift, he turns in. And Phil Burton rides the curb. The Mercedes has all the grunt coming out of the corner. This isn't for position, this is lappery. And Phil Burton is not making life very easy for him. This is really delaying Jason Minshaw because he can't get through to attack the race leader. And he's, of course, being caught by those behind that have got a clearer run and aren't being impeded by traffic. He's also being caught by the number 11 Audi, Tom Roach, 22nd. But again, catching up, you see, because the number 4 Ferrari is getting in the way a bit. Down to Brooklyn, the Mercedes is going to have a go. Is it on the inside? Jason's got to keep his cool here and not get too frustrated, but certainly Phil Burton should be getting out of the way. What he doesn't want to do is get out of the way and lose time and lose a place in the Audi that is behind the Mercedes, but that's what you've got to try and manage when you're being lapped. Jason Minshaw runs a little bit wide, but he's certainly being compromised here as they come up over the timing line. The M-Tech run Ferrari. New team for Phil Burton and Adam Wilcox, new car for them as well. Jason Minshaw to the inside line, and again he's blocked going into Copse Corner. It's hard to see from the camera shots whether there are blue flags being waved to Phil Burton, but there should be for sure. Up towards Maggots, well, there's not one there because it's the slippery surface flag. Through the Beckett's S's. Where does the Mercedes find a way through? Last lap for Phil Burton was a 2:11. Jason Minshaw a 2:11. He's being held up, there's no question about it. And so John Dillon is building his lead because of this back marker situation that is developing as Jason Minshaw comes onto the hanger straight. That is 48 being given a stop-go penalty after too short a pit stop. And look, Phil Burton is again defending, and Jason Minshaw has to go to the outside line here. He shouldn't have to be doing this. The Ferrari should just hop out of the way. But Minshaw is still stuck there. Down to the end of Vale as car 80, the Mark Poole, Richard Abra Aston rejoins, stop go, and finally Jason Minshaw has got through, and he had to work for that rather than being gifted it by the Ferrari. Phil Burton has done what he needs to do by staying ahead of Tom Roach, but that lap and a half or so has done Jason Minshaw absolutely no favours whatsoever. Whether Phil Burton's going to be as awkward to get past for other people, we'll have to wait and see, but certainly that's cost the Mercedes a chunk of time. You can see how much quicker the Mercedes is because it gets away. Now, of course, Colin White's got to get past these two back markers who are busy squabbling, and Tom Roach up the inside of Phil Burton. That's for position, and that was easier than it was for Jason Minshaw to lap the Ferrari. Phil Burton back on his case straight away, and now Colin White looks for a way through. Behind Colin is Matteo Bobbi in the number 27 Ferrari. Well, that's having a rather topsy-turvy race. We thought it was going to go well at the start, and it never did because it had a spin at the first corner. But now the FIA GT champion of years past is getting up there with the leaders, and he's absolutely flying. He's in the 2:07 7s. He is one of the quickest driver on the circuit. There is the second place Mercedes. Jason Minshaw at the wheel of it. He's back on the tail of John Dillon as they come through Woodcote. Over the timing line they will come now. Dillon leading the way, and the gap between him and Minshaw, even with the loss of time, is down to 0.8 of a second, because as soon as he's in clear air, Jason Minshaw is just so much quicker. It's going to be fascinating this to see how Mercedes go next weekend here in a different championship on different tyres. Leaders go through Beckett's. Is this the lap on which we get the lead change? Not if Jason Minshaw bites the curb and the grass like that and gets all crossed up, it won't. The car had a bit of a wobble. He corrects it, but he's almost on the back of John Dillon, who's starting now to feel the pressure, isn't he, as they come onto Hanger Straight once again. Down towards Stoke Corner. So let's have a look at the order and let's see the gaps between the cars. There's the top two, Ferrari Dillon, Mercedes Minshaw. Back marker, that's for third. It's going to change. Matteo Bobbi up on the inside of Colin White, diving into Stoke Corner. Matteo Bobbi through on the inside. The former FIA GT champion takes third place away from Colin White, and then behind them is the Ferrari, you can see with the shamrock on the front of it, of Alan Simonson. He's taken over from Hector Lester, and now Alan Simonson is closing all the time. Cars working their way now then towards the end of lap number 34, and there is Jason Minshaw, who's not quite in the lead of the race. He's only 0.8 back, but he's getting up there. Colin White, having lost third place to Matteo Bobbi, may well drop into the clutches of Alan Simonson. This is for the race lead, and two very, very snaky cars going through Village. Jason Minshaw in the Mercedes, right on the back of John Dillon. It's great to have Jason back in model racing. I tell you, he's always been a man to watch in historics, prepares them as well as races them, but now very much just the driver, and he's hustling on in the Mercedes. Now, what's going on behind? And we had Alan Simonson up past Colin White. I suspect the answer is yes, but we'll get a shot of it in a moment, I'm sure. And Tom Roach, look, who's a lap down. He's trying to unlap himself. Now, that's important for his race. He's 21st, but if he can get on the lead lap, look, in the Blandini Motorsport Audi in the background, that's going to help him in the long run. There's still an hour and a half to go. Through Woodcote they come now, making their run up towards the timing line and down towards Copse Corner. John Dillon, it is in the lead of the race. The gap now is half a second. First, second, back marker. Third, black Ferrari. Fourth, red Ferrari. Fifth, Ginetta. Sixth, white Mercedes, that's Steve Jans. Seventh, blue Ginetta, Nathan Freak. Eighth, the Curiacos BMW, Marco Attard. Ninth, Zach Brown, McLaren. And 10th, you've got to wait for, because it's the Andrew Howard Aston Martin, which was out of shot. It was just about to head to Woodcote. Leaders in traffic. There's no chance for Jason Minshaw to get through there because there just isn't the room. The other one to watch in this very definitely is Tom Roach. If he can follow Jason Minshaw through and try and unlap himself away from John Dillon and then get past the Mercedes, then that's a very good bit of driving. But Matteo Bobbi is going to have a go up the inside. Well, that puts him past the back marker. John Dillon hangs on to the lead. Alan Simonson is there as well. It's four of them for the race lead, nose to tail. Tom Roach ain't going to unlap himself now because he's tumbling down the order. There is a 1 second stop-go penalty for the race-leading car. A 1 second stop-go for John Dillon for too short a pit stop. But Minshaw is stuck behind him. Matteo Bobbi and Alan Simonson are right there. Two other heroes in Ferraris. They're running together, and Matteo Bobbi pulls out to get him alongside Jason Minshaw and Abbey. That's for second place. It's going to change. It does so. The Italian goes through. Matteo Bobbi, player manager at Vita 41 Team Italy, and Alan Simonson is about to get past Minshaw as well. So rather than going up one, he's down two. Jason Minshaw falls back in the pack. We're on board with him now. Matteo Bobbi's car has done 2 pit stops, 1 more to go. But they're going to have to put Jay Palmer back in, I think, aren't they? Because Matteo Bobbi started, don't forget. So if he were to go to the end, he would do more than the permitted driving time. They're going to have to put Jay Palmer back into that car, and I think it's going to drop down. It leads now on the inside. Matteo Bobbi through on the inside line. Alan Simonson tries to follow suit as well. Look at this, Formula Ferrari, 3 of them together. The gorgeous looking 458 running as one as they turn through Brooklands. Matteo Bobbi leading the way. Alan Simonson up on the inside of John Dillon, who's meant to be coming into the pits for his stop-go penalty. In has just come Tom Roach. So, a new order over the line. Bobbi to Simonson is a second, and then in third place is Dillon, and Minshaw is fourth, having lost time on that lap. Colin White's fifth, Nathan Freak sixth, Steve Jans is seventh, in eighth place is Marco Attard, in ninth is Zach Brown, and 10th is Andrew Howard. There's another brace of team managers, one for Optimum, Lee Mole and Joe Osborne's BMW, and the other being, again, Kinfound, John Gore and Phil Driver's Aston Martin. They're being summoned to the race director, so possibly some more penalties to be flying around here. Matteo Bobbi leads from Alan Simonson. Lap 36 at Silverstone. They head down towards Stoke Corner. John Dillon running third. It is a Ferrari 1, 2, 3 for the moment. Now there you can see number 6, which is again with a Damocletian penalty perhaps hanging over it. The team manager heading to race control, John Gore 23rd. He was battling with Marco Attard 8. Now this Ginetta scrap is for 5th place. It's Colin White ahead of Nathan Freak, and Colin being given a bit of a workover. Into the pits comes Zach Brown by the look of it. And that car was well placed, wasn't it? But it's now dropping down the order. Number 6 gets a drive-through penalty. So drive-through for car 6 out of 23rd place. That's John Gore. Yeah, Zach Brown was 10th, and also Steve Jans has come into the pit lane as Jason Minshaw gets himself past John Dillon. That is for third place. The Mercedes through. The 2 Ferraris ahead, though, are going to put slower drivers back in. Hector Lester needs to take over from Alan Simonson and isn't as quick, and Jay Palmer will take over again from Matteo Bobbi and is not as quick. So they are going to lose time, and we understand a gear problem, a gear compressor problem for Zach Brown and other Prince McLaren. It's not a routine stop, it's a gearbox related problem for Zach Brown. That's what's brought that car in, so yet more woe for United Autosports. I still, looking at this with an hour and a half to go, have no idea who's going to win it. It is one of the most open GT races we've had for a long time. In GT4, however, it is being led currently by one of the Dutch interlopers, the 408 Adam Christodoulou Jörg Wiebahn Porsche, being chased by currently number 401, the BMW of Prince Bernhard van Oranje. And then there's this for third, which is James May versus Tom Wilson in the Aston Martin that won at Rockingham. There is the Scott and Dylan Ferrari after its stop-go penalty rejoining. Now this is the third placed scrap in GT4. They're the top two of the British point scorers, but within the overall context of GT4 they're running third and fourth, and you can see it's Ginetta ahead of Aston Martin, so two good British brands here. Ahead, as I say, Porsche versus BMW from the Dutch drivers, part of the peripatetic European GT4 series. But James May, who gets stronger and stronger every season, keeping at bay Tom Wilson, that we used to see in the Volkswagen Racing Cup. Flashing his headlights is John Gore. And more Ginettas. This is a change of place imminent for fourth overall, because Colin White gets forced onto the curb and Nathan Freak, making Ian Stinton's car absolutely fly, goes up and gains a place off him. John Gore, remember, has got to serve a drive-through penalty, and he's a lap down on these cars, so flash his headlights he may well want to, but it's not going to serve him any good. He's not, even if he gets past, he is still going to have to make a pit stop. But he thinks he's got the quicker car, and don't forget he led early on, so he's in a big hurry to gain places once again. Matteo Bobby to Alan Simmons in 1.2 seconds. Freak locks up, runs off the road. Past him goes Colin White. Past him also goes the lapped Aston of John Gore. And if he's on his toes here, Marco Attard might get past him as well, coming out of the loop. He does. Now, has Nathan Freak got a problem? That car's not picking up speed again, is it? There is something not right about that car. John Gore to get past Colin White, but as I say, he's on a different lap, so it matters little for track position. And the Aston Martin racing team watches on as Matteo Bobby has gone over the timing line, now 2 seconds ahead of Alan Simmons, and that gap is growing. But are we about to see Nathan Freak into the pit lane? I think there's something looking a bit ominous around the 17 Ginetta. Minshaw through, running third. And then behind, you've got the Colin White number 40 Ginetta. Stops currently underway. Autosport's hard at work. Now we were looking at GT4. This was the James May, Tom Wilson battle for the lead of the British drivers. Wilson from a long way back, charging up the inside into Brooklands. Through he goes. Takes over the lead of the British GT4 part of the race, if you like. Third overall in GT4. And they're still squabbling. The Aston has stayed ahead, but only just, and they are still pretty much tied together as the cars now run out of Club Corner. Heading up towards Abbey, this for them is a battle that takes them 25th and 26th. John Gore, number 6, on the back of Phil Burton. That's the place. And for 19th position, it's about to change. The Aston Martin comes up alongside the Ferrari. This is where Phil Burton can make the car legitimately wide, and he does so to hang on to 19th place. Phil, remember, for many, many years was a stalwart Ferrari 430 racer, and every weekend we used to talk about the fact that there was a potential victory. It never came. Phil, after all his years in the championship, has never had a British GT win. And Adam Wilcox, his co-driver, watching on as John Gore charges up on the inside, diving through Abbey. And the Ginetta that's running with them, don't forget, is Colin White. He's a lap up on these drivers. He's in 4th place overall and going very strongly as well at the moment. Gore heads up towards the loop, and the car is now in 19th place. It's a lap down on the leaders, but he's still got this drive-through penalty to serve as far as I'm aware. Nathan Freak did pit and a spin. That is Phil Burton, who's gone right the way round coming out of Aintree, back in the right direction. He continues on his way. That was a big lose, that, for Phil, but thankfully he is able to continue undaunted down towards Brooklands. He might be a little bit careful now. Yes, the car doesn't turn in very well. Now, has it got a drama? Did it spin because of a problem rather than because of Phil Burton's right foot? Big sideways moment for Tom Wilson, and that's going to put James May right back onto his tail as the cars swing their way onto Hanger Straight. The drive-through penalty board that's been shown for John Gore has not yet been responded to, as far as I can work out. So there might be another element to that story still to come. Race leader in traffic. There he is, Matteo Bobby on the inside of the black Ferrari, going ahead of 53 Aston, which is currently 24th overall. Tom Wilson still with James May right up behind him, and then Alan Simonson in traffic, being delayed just a little bit, goes for the inside line, but these two battling for position. He gets past one, he gets past two. Good driving by Simonson. So top 2 British GT3 past top 2 British GT4 now. So we've got the cars working their way up front on lap number 39. And the John Gore drive-through yet to be served for overtaking under safety car conditions earlier on in the race. But I think he's on his way up to the timing line. So you look at Tom Wilson, the leader of the British GT4 class, and Steve Chaplin, the owner of the car, double VW Cup champion, into the pits once again, 48. Now this is the pro-speed Porsche of the two Charleses, Putnam and Espinal, very quick American sports car racers. And this for the race lead, Alan Simonson on the inside of Matteo Bobbi, and he goes through, diving down towards Brooklands. He was 1.6 seconds back at the start of the lap, but Alan Simonson underlines that you can never discount him, and he puts the Rosso Verde UCB Ferrari up into the lead of the race then, ahead of Matteo Bobbi. Lap after lap after lap, the story changes. Over the timing line comes now Alan Simonson up front. We haven't really seen enough of him in this race, but he's always making his mark. Alan, who spent a lot of his time racing in Australia, and that's how he got to know Hector Lester, former V8 Youth champion. He's raced in GTs and very successfully in V8 supercars down under as well. He leads, but straight away he's in traffic as he has to work his way past one of the AF Corsa Ferraris. Which one's that? It's Duncan Cameron, isn't it, 29, who's on the lead lap, and he wants to try to stay there. He's about to go a lap down because he's got Simonson and Bobby right up behind him. All three nose to tail onto Hanger Straight. Lights flashing. Alan Simonson comes up behind Cameron. He's got to work his way past him and through traffic as well. Matteo Bobbi up on the inside there. Simonson on the outside of the back marker. On the inside is Matteo Bobbi. And you've got two of the top Ferrari drivers in world GT racing running together. There are quite a few others that would say I should be in that mix as well. Don't forget me, Matt Griffin could be one of them, but he's sitting in the pit lane, who is waiting for his seat in the 29 car. You can also add Tony Villander amongst others to the star Ferrari roster, but in terms of this race, Simonson versus Matteo Bobbi, nose to tail. And Matteo Bobbi not just driving the car, but also having to oversee the team. He runs the kind of franchised Vita 4-1 Racing Team Italy operation out of the same guys as Mikael Bartel's team. Turning nose to tail up through the loop. Even though Alan Simonson was able to make up all of that lost time and get the lead, he can't pull away, can he? So as the cars work their way now onto Wellington Straight, wide over the curve goes Bobby, and he's in a good position to challenge to get the lead back at the end of Wellington Straight. Pulls out, thinks about it. Is he too far back? He is. So Alan Simonson hangs on the race lead. They're coming up behind one of the GT4 BMW M3s. Look, very different shape, but it qualifies as a GT4 car. Matteo Bobbi's going to get hemmed in behind him because he went a bit too deep into Luffield, ran wide up behind the BMW, so he's lost a length against Simonson as they come now into Woodcote Corner. Over the timing line once more. It was 0.4 of a second last lap between these two, and as they come through now, it is 0.486. He's gone up by a couple of hundreds, that's all. So the traffic didn't play a massive part in this. Simonson versus Bobby then onto lap number 41. Can Bobby fight back? Can Simonson continue to pull away? When's the next round of pit stops due as well? Because we're about 20 minutes away from the next hour mark. And as they ride the curbs through Beckett's, Simonson's car has only been in once to give way to the Dane. Matteo Bobbi's car has been in twice. Bobby to Palmer and then back to Matteo Bobbi. So the leading car is worse placed in as much as it's got to make a further 2 pit stops, whereas the black Ferrari second has got to make 1. So I think inevitably Alan Simonson's car will fall down the order. What he needs is a late race safety car to bring him back into the mix. He's up behind the GT4 Porsche, which is the car of Adam Christodoulou and Jörg Wiebahn. And that's the car, in fact, that leads the overall GT4 contest as the leaders work lap 41 here at Silverstone. This is Club. Up towards Abbey come the two Ferraris, leading the way then, Simonson versus Bobby. And then behind them, it is still Jason Minshaw in 3rd place. And then you've got Colin White ahead of Marco Attard 5th. Andrew Howard is 6th as Matteo Bobbi tries the outside line there, going up to Village, and that didn't pay off for him, so Alan Simonson is still there ahead. The two of them running nose to tail now as they work their way on to Wellington Straight once again. Down they come towards Brooklands, more back markers ahead, including, by the look of it, the Paul McNeely, Jamie Stanley Ferrari 430. Paul McNeely out of the way he gets. On the inside, Alan Simonson works his way through traffic. and Matteo Bobbi staying with him. Matteo, the former FIA GT champion, way back, 2003. That was in a very different era of Ferraris. Now out of Woodcote Corner comes car 3. The race leader, Alan Simonson, is about to come over the timing line. He does so. He leads now by half a second. Well, we've heard early on from Mark Blundell, who was involved in that big drama coming out of the loop. Derek Johnston was involved in it as well. We've not yet heard his side of the story. We'll do so now with Gary Champion.
Yeah, I mean, whenever we talk about accidents, David, it's always, you know, there's a couple of parties involved. I have to say, Derek, you appear to have come off the worst, really.
Yeah, I mean, you know, on a separate line to them two guys, they were in their own battle getting tangled up. I mean, bit gutsy move, but they were doing what they were doing, and you know, the pair of them drove into me and took us out. We were clean, we were minding our own business, we were quicker than the cars in front, and yeah, you know, they say that's racing, that's what happens, but to be honest with you, it was, you know, some people do need to take care and remember it's a 3-hour race, but to me, the pair of them were out of order, and we were the innocent party.
So slightly taking exception to what Mark Blundell said then, are you really? On the basis that he's saying, you know, there's lunatics out there and so on, you kind of, you know...
to me, he looked like one of them, but, you know, that's Mark Blenn's version and my version, two different versions, but, you know, as I say, I'm the innocent party, so I'm, you know, obviously still full of adrenaline and annoyed at the moment, but, you know, we were innocent, we were took out, and nobody's come to say anything to us guys. No. And, you know, it's an expensive weekend for everybody to do nothing, isn't it?
Absolutely. Derek, thanks very much indeed. That is the other side of the story. I think, David Addison, rather like at Castle Combe for the other weekend, we almost have the case for the defence.
Yes, the only one you've not yet found is Richard Sykes, who was the man in the middle. And let's have another look. We've heard from Mark Blundell, we've heard from Derek Johnston, but Richard Sykes, who allegedly triggered it all at the previous corner and then ended up with one seriously mangled Ginetta. He's the one that Gary hasn't yet come across, so on your toes, champion. Off you go. Let's hear from the third part of the story. But yes, we've heard from one, we've heard from the other. We need to hear from the third. In the pit lane is the GT4 Aston. That's the Tom Wilson, Steve Chaplin car, driver change. John Gore's penalty that we keep talking about is this for overtaking under yellows. Nathan Freak, by the way, we saw him slow in the blue Ginetta, out with brake failure. That was the reason for that car suddenly slowing and retiring to the pit lane. So very disappointing, because Nathan Freak was going great guns. There, number one, is the Michael Caine Ahmad Al-Hathi Porsche that is in 11th place. It's Ahmad Al-Hathi at the wheel of it. He's another driver in the Blancpain Endurance Series, as well as British, different teams for whom he drives, but he'll be Porsche mounted in a week's time as well. Michael Caine, remember, the reigning champion. He never won a race last year, but he won the title. That'll do. And because of the success that the pair have had in British GT and in Al-Hathi's case in the Carrera Cup GB, they are considered to be an exotic driver pairing. Used car dealer from Newmarket, Michael Caine, is exotic, you see, and as a consequence of that, they cop for 75 kilos of extra ballast, which rather hampers the car, but they can do their best to drive around it. And as the race unwinds, they're up to 11th position. Matteo Bobbi is in traffic at the moment. He's tucked up behind the Duncan Houseman Luke Brahms Camaro. Again, one of the Dutch GT4 cars. Good to have that in the race this weekend. It is Duncan Houseman at the wheel of it, brother of Patrick Houseman, the former multiple Porsche Super Cup champion. Matteo Bobbi goes through, and Alan Simonson has bought himself an ever so slender lead, 1.2 seconds it is. Jason Minshaw is nearly 20 seconds adrift now in third place. So they're ready to rejoin. After 190 seconds is the 53 Aston, and that's going to be Steve Chaplin back at the wheel of that car. Meantime, you've got the Pro Speed Porsche with the American flag on the side of it. Charles Espinlau in 14th place, busy battling with Steve Wyatt, the Australian, heading down now towards the left-hander at Brooklands. And Ahmad Al-Hathi, who's on the lead lap, won't be for long, because he's got Alan Simonson up behind him. And going a lap down is bad news. You want to be on the lead lap in case there is a late race safety car. Many of the teams, of course, keep the faster driver until that last stint, so they can capitalise if there is indeed a late safety car period. Al-Hathi goes through, and the lap that he does is a 2 minutes 8. Alan Simonson a 2 minutes 7. So he's going to be lapped very shortly. But don't forget that Simonson's Ferrari has got to make 2 more pit stops. It'll be a short stint, I would imagine, for Hector Lester. And then They'll put Alan Simonson into the very end, and he doesn't want to get held up for too long. Aaron Scott there ready to take over the 9th place car from John Dillon. Simonson goes through, the Great Dane puts a lap on the ever-improving Omani driver, and there is Matteo Bobbi. His co-driver Jay Palmer returned to racing a couple of seasons ago with United Autosports in an Audi with John Bintcliffe after a few years away, former Westfield racer, and it was Jay that had a spin on the warming up lap for the first race at Alton Park this year, so he has these occasional moments. If he can keep out of trouble though, taking the car over from Matteo Bobbi, they should be well placed for a good result here. Out of Stowe, down through Vale they go. Hartley slots back in behind them, having gone a lap down, and now the cars turn their way once again through Club Corner. Lap 44 they're on. Now that's Jason Minshaw. The car is in 3rd, and in terms of its lap times it is still looking as though it's going to be a potential race winner, and so too is 79 behind. They both made 2 pit stops. Oliver Bryant to take over from Marco Attard, so I think long term it could turn out to be a Minshaw Hetherington versus Attard Bryant battle for the race lead. It rather depends on the pace of Jay Palmer, but this Mercedes is still well placed, certainly for the podium, if not for a race win, but a potential win is not out of the question. It's losing touch admittedly to the Ferraris, but Jay Palmer isn't going to be as quick, I don't think, and we know that the Simonson and Leicester car has another pit stop to make anyway, so that really, even though it's leading, it's kind of out of the mix. So car 14 is still a potential winner, so is number 79. Another car that's creeping into the picture, we've not seen all day I don't think, is 888, Steve Tandy and Dan Brown running in 7th. And that car looking pretty quick, Dan Brown to take over, and 007, Andrew Howard is 6th, Johnny Adam to take over, that's still in the mix as well. Colin White's just pitted out of 5th place to give way once again to Tom Sharp. We've had 2 safety car periods, one a lengthy one just to interrupt the flow a little bit, but it's been a race full of drama. And Jason Minshaw then running in 3rd spot. Remember, he's had 2 pit stops and he comes now up through Woodcote Corner. Everybody must make a mandatory 3. That's the 6th placed car, Andrew Howard and Johnny Adam. Although the lap times at the moment in the 212s, Johnny Adam, who so nearly won at Brands Hatch last year, is going to have to be very, very good in his stint, I think, to make up some of the lost ground. Andrew Howard, whose Beach Dean company runs the car. Beach Dean Racing AMR, the entrant, coming now through Woodcote, up over the timing line. And it'll inherit 5th now, I suspect, with, yes, Colin White having pitted. So Simonson, Bobbi, Minshaw, Attard, Howard, Steve Tandy is the order. There is Steve Tandy, who began in GT racing and then went off to go and do historics. He's got a very enviable collection of cars, as Steve, from historic Formula 2 cars to Le Mans style Group 4 sports cars to Jaguar E-types, and a huge enthusiast for his racing. And there is Rembert Berg in the car he shares with Warren Hughes. Now that car is lapping quicker than everybody apart from the 2 Ferraris in the lead. That could be your winner yet, because they've got to get Warren Hughes back on board that. So that is another very, very rapid car. It is, as I say, all building up nicely. We've got 70 minutes to go, an hour and 10. There is a 10-second stop-go penalty being given now as a spin comes for 45 Ginetta. That is Rory Bryant and Anthony Rogers. Let me finish my sentence about the stop-go penalty before something else kicks off. Number 4 it is Phil Burton and Adam Wilcox, not for getting in the way of cars on the lead lap, but for speeding in the pit lane. So Phil Burton is 19th, but will have a 10-second stop-go when he pits. Over the timing line goes then the leading Ferrari battle. It's 0.697 of a second between them. It's closed up, but as I say, Alan Simonson has to make an extra pit stop because of the way they've split the race strategy, and therefore in the long run it's going to affect that car. Matteo Bobbi, 2nd place, hustling on once again. Last time he did a personal best in the first third of the lap, which takes you from the start line down to the approach to Stowe Corner. What can he do about getting up onto the tail of the race leader? The danger to them is the number 10 Audi, 7th at the moment, but Rembert Berg is going very strongly indeed. So that is another car that shouldn't be discounted from this. It has done 2 pit stops. It was started by Rembert Berg, so Warren Hughes to get back in for the end. That could be another potential victor. It is very much a wide open race, this. Now, we saw a Ginetta parked by the side of the road, the Rory Bryant and Anthony Rogers car. It got there because up the inside goes the 18 Ferrari of Gary Eastwood, and he turns him around. That car, thanks to a bit of help from Rob Bath's stint, is 12 for Eastwood Ferrari. That is a car that's in second spot at the moment. Matteo Bobby at the wheel, working his way now down to Village. He's on the tail once again of Alan Simonson. Fascinating to see the way the pace of these two cars ebbs and flows. One lap one is quicker than the other. I know traffic has a part to play in it, but Alan Simonson was able to come diving past and get the lead, but he's never really been able to pull away. Now, how much more of a stint has he got left? Because he's been in the car for quite some time now. Down toward Brooklands they come, and at the start of the lap it was 0.6 of a second. Alan Simonson a bit wide into the corner, gathers it up and gets the apex eventually, but that's enabled Bobby to get onto his tail. They turn their way through Woodcote. That's the Dillon and Scott Ferrari having come in. It had to make a 1 second stop go, remember. Now it comes in to put Aaron Scott behind the wheel, and so the car falls away in, it was 8th place. Now this little fight is Andrew Howard versus Steve Tandy. Remember pre-race, Joe Osborne, who drives the sister Optimum 888 BMW, was saying that this is a good circuit and the weather is good for the tyres on the BMWs. Well, Steve Tandy is now getting more and more of a threat, and Dan Brown, his co-driver, is very quick, and Rembert Berg is right up behind them now in the Audi as they come down towards Brooklyn. So this for 5th, 6th and 7th, building up nicely as well. Rembert Berg, who has raced in Boss GP, he's raced in the Eurocup McGann Trophy, and now he is starting to develop very strongly as a GT racer as well. He's on the back of the Tandy BMW. And Steve, who splits his time, as I say, between modern GT cars and historic GT cars and historic single-seaters, comes now through Woodcote. Andrew Howard's last lap at 2:11, Steve Tandy at 2:10, Rembert Berg at 2:10. Tom Sharp, incidentally, has done the best last sector of anybody in the race. The Ginetta he's just taken over from Colin White. It's quite a long way down again now, in 15th place. We're getting more and more people for track limit warnings, but they're not affecting the lead battle at the moment. But again, drivers starting to get a little bit more gung-ho with their lines through certain corners, and Steve Tandy is about to make his move, isn't he? This is 5th and 6th. They're on the Hangar straight. Aston Martin versus BMW. The Z4, great sounding car that. Steve Tandy has a look on the inside line. Is he going to go through? Yes, he is. Andrew Howard gives him racing room. Doesn't want to get involved in any silliness with an hour to go. So Steve Tandy goes through on the inside. That puts him up into 5th place. Down to the end of Vale. Rembert Berg almost with them. Look, in the M Sport Audi. Through Club Corner comes Steve Tandy in the BMW with the yellow mirrors. The car's run by Ian Harrison. It's the same 888 that you see in the British Touring Car Championship. They form this alliance for GT racing with Optimum Motorsport that's now fronted by Lee Mole. And there to the inside line, Rembert Berg is going to displace Andrew Howard. Yep, through he goes into the top 6, and Andrew Howard goes way, way wide off the road. I think he was put offline there onto the marbles. The Aston Martin recovers. Hopefully that's not a problem for that car, and Andrew Howard should be able to pick up pace. Well, Steve Tandy then up into 5th, but for how much longer? I have a suspicion that it won't be too long before he has Rembert Berg breathing down his neck in the Audi that finished in 2nd spot at Rockingham. Don't forget, though, that the Audi has to make, in its last pit stop, an extra 15 seconds because of that result at Rockingham. So going well now, but whatever happens in the end, Warren Hughes will have to overcome extra time. Down the pit lane comes Jason Minshaw. This possibly the last stop. I'll tell you a lie, it's leaving the pit lane, so Ben Hetherington to take over, and that car now should go to the end, should it not? 27 is in 2nd spot, and with an hour and 5 minutes to go and a tank of fuel in the Mercedes, Ben Hetherington should bring that to the end. So now car 14 is going to be the one to watch to see how it continues towards the end against everybody else that will have to serve their final pit stops. Things changing right the way through the race. Back into the car then is Ben Hetherington, and the way they've split it means that it's a middle stint for Jason, bookended by Ben Hetherington, and Jason Minshaw, having done a cracking job, good Northwest hero Jason Minshaw, after his stint in the Mercedes, is with Gary Champion.
Well, you're the hero of the afternoon, Jason, for our commentator at least. That was a hero stint.
You reckon? It was a bit hard work getting past some of them, but it was just a shame that we had a little bit of a drama with the reset on the dash, and we had to come through for the second drive to reset it while we were stood still. But other than that, yeah, no, car's really good.
And out there, conditions and so on. I mean, there's been, you know, safety car, crash, safety car, etc. Has that bothered you at all?
Not really, no. I mean, you just got to drive with your head in a 3-hour race. There's all these lunatics who think you can win it in the first half an hour or so. But no, just keep out of trouble. The race will come to you, and that's what my plans are.
So when you came in and there was just a quick open door and shut again, was that strategy or was that something wrong?
No, we're supposed to push a button when we do the stop to reset the fuel, because it keeps counting down. Then when it gets to a certain level, it basically tells the engine you haven't got enough fuel, so it puts you in a slow down mode to get back to the pit. So it was a case of having to do it. So it had like 10 litres on the dash, so that's what it thought it had in, but we had a full tank.
I think there's sledging that's just been introduced in motorsport by Trevor then in that case, because he told us it was technique. So there you go, it was strategy, it wasn't at all, Jason.
Well, I tell it how it is, but there you go.
Thanks very much indeed. Man from the north, David Anderson.
Yes,
straight talking.
Absolutely, Jason is not wrong in saying he tells it how it is. The lead battle, nose to tail now. We got the Ferraris absolutely tied together. Matteo Bobbi led over the line last time, but Alan Simonson has gone back ahead of him. So they're trading the lead, these two. Jason Minshaw's car then back in the race 13th, Ben Hetherington at the wheel just to tie that one up. But this for the race lead, and it can't go on much longer because Alan Simonson must be due a pit stop soon to put Hector Lester, the car's owner, back behind the wheel. Matteo Bobbi is due Jay Palmer as well. Now, these two, I reckon, must be going to the end of their fuel here. So it could be that the pair of them dive in this time. Don't forget, both of these cars have hustled on and worked up the order. They've done a lot of overtaking and a lot of flat-out driving in this last stint. So fuel might be a bit marginal. Duncan Cameron handing over to Matt Griffin. That car needs somehow to get itself back onto the lead lap. 12th at the moment. Now, do we have either of the leaders heading for the pit lane this time around? Not Alan Simonson, not Matteo Bobbi. So if they are getting low on fuel, there's still enough for another lap. They're working these cars very hard indeed. Down towards Copse Corner, the gap is 0.7 of a second, and as I say, it's flicked back again. The Dane ahead of the Italian now. There is Matt Griffin joining in. He wants to get himself ahead of Alan Simonson here. He's going to split the two leaders. That's not great news for Matteo Bobbi, but Griff needs, if he can, to unlap himself here from the Dane to give that car any chance of winning. They've also, just looking at this, 29 done. Now, 5 pit stops. The car must have had a problem early on when we saw Cameron getting in to the pit lane twice in quick succession, but in other words, they've done the right number of stops now. That's another one that can go to the end. So Matt Griffin making his way down towards Stoke, trying to defend from Matteo Bobbi, but effectively Matt Griffin is a back marker, so he's got to let Matteo Bobbi go, or has he? Because Griffin's pace is good enough to have a genuine battle here, and he's going to stay ahead of him. That's really bad news for Matteo Bobbi, because Alan Simonson is getting away, and Ben Hetherington in the Mercedes has just done the best lap of the race, would you believe? Fresh into the car, and he's quicker than anybody else out there. Now, we've got the race leaders then working their way through lap number 50, and it is Alan Simonson in the lead. And now, because of Matt Griffin rejoining where he did, it's quite a big lead. Now, this is a lap ago. Matteo Bobbi did lead, but he went a little bit wide and wobbled a touch at club, and up the inside came Alan Simonson, and that put him back into the lead of the race. Great battle between these two Ferraris. They're not the quickest cars out there, though, anymore. That honour goes the way of Ben Hetherington. Through number 3 Ferrari, it is Alan Simonson at the wheel. He is about to sort out Tom Roach up the road ahead of him, and Vita 4-1 Team Italy watching on. Jay Palmer there ready to get into the car. Michael Caine gets on board number 1. That's 7th at the time of its pit stop, but of course we'll tumble down the order accordingly. And at the end of the next round of stops, we can worry about who's really where. Alan Simonson through Luffield. That car has only had 1 stop. It's got to make 2 more in an hour. And Alan Simonson is going to stay out there. He's going to do as much as he can to get that car up the order. Matt Griffin shaking off Matteo Bobbi and now going after him. That's Matt Griffin's out lap. Jay Palmer there, just getting ready to take over, looks on. And the battle will continue after the break. Welcome back to Silverstone for a manic fourth round of the Avon Tires British GT Championship. We're into the last hour. It's a 3-hour race, this, and the race leader, Alan Simonson, is in the pit lane, handing over to Hector Lester, the second of the 3 mandatory stops for that car, which puts Matteo Bobbi into the lead of the race. David Addison trackside, Gary Champion in the pit lane, and there's still a lot to shake out of the race yet, with the BMW coming across the line in the hands of Oliver Bryant now, having taken it back from Marco Attard. Behind is the Mercedes of Klaus Hummel. The order I'll give you when we've got the number 3 Leicester Simonson Ferrari back into the race, because it continues to change. United Autosports has been a team rather in the wars in this race. Recently Zach Brown and Alvaro Parent had a gearbox problem. They've now been given a drive-through for a pit stop infringement, and the car, trying to serve another pit stop, has ground to a halt. So life is just getting worse and worse with the gearbox drama. This is the car that leads the way, 27 Ferrari, Matteo Bobbi at the wheel, but he's got to pit yet again to give the car over to Jay Palmer for the last stint. Car 1 is now the Ahmed Al-Hadi Michael Caine Porsche that is running in 17th place. It's shown as still being Ahmed Al-Hadi, but I thought Michael Caine got back into that car, and the way that it's going suggests that it's the reigning champion behind the wheel. He's got himself up with the Mark Patterson Matt Bell Audi number 25 as well, as the race leader comes through. Matteo Bobbi is not yet for giving way to Jay Palmer, and on track Oliver Bryant has just done the fastest first sector of anybody in the race. The number 79 BMW that qualified on pole position is going strongly. We've also had another driver change for 888. Steve Tandy we saw getting past Marco Attard a few laps ago, and now it is Dan Brown who has taken over the 888 car. The sister BMW, car number 8, disappeared from the scene very early on. Lee Mole and Joe Osborne's car. Jay Palmer walks away from the pit wall, ready to get into 27, which therefore is imminent for the pit lane, and there it is at the back of the shot, the black Vita 4-1 Racing Team Italy Ferrari 458 Italia. Matteo Bobbi, former FIA GT champion, is the man behind the wheel of it, and the Italian comes now through Stowe Corner, and 27 that started on the 3rd row of the grid lost time early on and has worked its way very much back into contention. There's 13, which had a 1-second stop-go penalty to Aaron Scott at the wheel of it. Now 48, which is the Espenlaub Putnam Pro Speed Porsche, has rather stealth-like got itself up into 3rd place, and it has had a drive-through, but I think helped in part by long stints. It has got itself up into 3rd position. I'm not convinced it's going to stay there, because I think there's another driver change due in that. It's going to drop down again, but it's had a very good run. It was Charles Putnam that started it. It's Charles Espenlaub in it now, and that is Matt Griffin, is it not? No, it is the Wyatt Rugolo sister car, 28. So 11th, Michele Rugolo, and he's got a punctured tyre. That's the reason that he's slowed and he's heading for the pit lane. So it's the AF Corsa car, sister car to the Griffin and Cameron one, hence the confusion, and it's heading for the pit lane. So Michele Rugolo hopefully won't do a David Ashburn and lose it, even though the car's evil handling in the pit lane. David Ashburn crashed in the pits early on, if you missed the start of the race, when he looked down to find the pit lane speed limiter. He didn't find that, but he found a wall, and that put pay to the car, basically wrecked the Alton Park winning track speed Porsche. So Rugolo and Steve Wyatt will drop down, and there you can see car number 44, which is the Rick Parfitt Jr. driven Ginetta, but currently is 7th in GT4 and is 3rd in British GT4, because you've got the European GT4 cars mixing it. They will, to be fair, score points in British GT as well, but of the regular drivers, this is the 3rd placed car within the division. Rick Parfitt moving up from the Ginetta Challenge into GT racing this year, son of the Status Quo musician, Rick Jr., musician in his own right, and an ever-improving race driver, that's for sure. Now there is Hector Lester, who is at the wheel, or should be at the wheel, of number 3. It's still shown on the timing screen as Alan Simonson, but it looks like Hector Lester's crash helmet in that car. And this is the GT4 lead battle. Adam Christodoulou here is ahead of Prince Bernhard van Oranje as they come into Woodcote Corner, nose to tail. Flash of the headlights from the Ecuriacos BMW. That is Oliver Bryant at the wheel, and he is currently running in 6th place overall. His target really is the Ben Hetherington Mercedes. Into the pits has come 48, the Pro Speed Porsche we were just looking at about half a lap ago. That's now pitted. I think I suggested there was another driver change due. It is happening, and it's 130 seconds, remember, for the driver change and the refuelling stop. So that will lose it effectively a lap now, and it'll go back down to where it was earlier on in the 20s, that car. The GT4 lead battle, though, very good indeed. Adam Christodoulou at the head of it. Now, it's been a bit of a checkered week for this team. The car Adam should have been racing was destroyed in the Nürburgring 24 hours last weekend. Is he about to lose his class lead? Bernhard van Oranje challenges on the inside. The BMW is going to go through, I think, on the inside there. He's up alongside, and they're going to be level right the way through Vale. That's my Adam Christodoulou story. The car that replaced it wouldn't work because the ECU had failed, and in comes the race leader now, Matteo Bobbi. This is therefore the third car for the Adam Christodoulou squad of the week, and even on their way here they had a puncture on the transporter, so the fact they're in the race at all is good, never mind the fact they're leading the class. So Porsche versus BMW in GT4. Matteo Bobbi in to give way to Jay Palmer. There is the Ferrari. Anything happening? Door opens. Seat changed, and Matteo Bobbi then will drop down the order while the pit stop goes on. Let's focus on GT4 for a minute. You don't find that many GT4 Porsches, but this is one that has to carry a huge amount of extra weight to bring it down to GT4 spec, but it's good to have those cars. Paul van Splunteren, that we see racing in the Blancpain series, was the man charged with homologating them a few seasons back. The Hector Lester Ferrari. It must be Hector because it's not an Alan Simonson lap time. He's back on track, but that car, thanks to Alan's efforts, has been kept in second place, and if it gets back to the start line before this car leaves the pit lane, it could take over the lead of the race once again. New tyres then, 2-part pit stops in the championship. Nothing can happen apart from refuelling, or even the driver change. Driver change has to be while the tyres are put on. So refuelling is part 1, and then everything else is part 2. And all of this, plus the time pit in to pit out, must be 130 seconds. That car is serving its third and final stop. It does not have any extra time. Number 10 Audi, Warren Hughes, is back behind the wheel, and because of its extra time, he fell to 10th place. So when these stops are done, I'll give you a rundown of the order. Then we've got the Hector Lester Ferrari, which is on the run up towards Village. It is currently in second spot, and I think it is going to remain in second spot. I'm not convinced that car's going to go ahead of Jay Palmer on the exit from the pits, but there is Palmer, the Vita 4-1 team, getting ready to wave him away. 130 seconds is a long stop, we've got to be fair, and that car is poised, ready, go, go, go. And Jay Palmer blasts down the pit lane, and now the pressure is on. Here comes the Hector Lester Alan Simonson Ferrari then down through Brooklands, heading up towards the right at Luffield, and it's going to remain in second place, that car, behind Jay Palmer. But now you've got the AMs squabbling in this last 48.5 minutes of the race. Now, where are they going to be relative also to Ben Hetherington, because his lap times are better than anybody else out there at the moment in the 2-minute 6s. Jay Palmer leading the way in 27, and this, about a third of a lap back, is the car that is still looking very strong for a race win. This is the quickest car on the circuit, but it is fourth. It is behind Tom Sharp's Ginetta, so it's got to get past that and then set off in pursuit of the Ferraris. So it is at the moment Jay Palmer in the lead, ahead of Hector Lester, ahead of Tom Sharp, ahead of Ben Hetherington, there in fourth place. And that Mercedes, which is still going very, very strongly, is looking as though it's a potential race winner. What's going on behind? There's Ollie Bryant's BMW. That's got a chance still as well, because that's lapping quickly. But the Mercedes is certainly very strong indeed. And perhaps it wouldn't have been at the top of everybody's list of predictions as a race winner, but a good first stint by Ben Hetherington. Jason Minshaw did the job well in the middle stint, and they don't have to make another pit stop. This car can go to the end. However, it's still got to catch up to those Ferraris. That's the sister Fortec Mercedes in. Team ready to go to work as Klaus Hummel gives way to the Luxembourg driver Steve Jans. One out, both away, and now they can refuel the car. Hetherington out of club. He's not yet doing a huge amount of attacking against Tom Sharp's Ginetta. Remember, these two ran together early in the race, and actually it was the Ginetta behind the Mercedes, but Tom Sharp also has done a good job with the help of Colin White to get the Ginetta up into third place. Don't rule that out for being on the podium either. Still 46 minutes of the race to run. You're on board with Ben Hetherington as he makes his way now up through the loop. Then to Aintree, former home of the British Grand Prix. Speed building through that left kink, and then onto Wellington Straight. You can use all the curve on the inside there and a bit on the outside as well, and then the run down towards Brooklands. Last lap for the Ginetta was a 2.8. Last lap for the Mercedes, a high 2:06. In theory, the Mercedes should be able to work its way past without too much drama. The Mercedes, we know, has got loads of grunt. Big front engine car, type of car that won the Nürburgring 24 Hours this year, and heading up now towards the timing line. They come through now to complete lap 55, and the lead gap, Jay Palmer to Hector Lester, is 16.5 seconds. We'll see next time what a flying lap for Jay Palmer is like, but it's 2 minutes 12 for Hector Lester, and it's 2 minutes 7 for Hetherington, who is still the quickest man in the leading quartet. The Mercedes continues to look strong, but he's also got to do quite a bit of overtaking yet before he gets to the end of the race. This is lap 56. You're on board with Ben Hetherington. He's running in 4th place, but he's still looking strong for a race victory, I reckon. Onto the hanger straight, now speed building. Into Stowe Corner for the 56th time comes Tom Sharp in the G55 GT3. We're into the last 3/4 of an hour, and you're on board with Ben Hetherington's Fortec Run Mercedes that is currently running in 4th place. This is the fight for 3rd, and they're catching the car ahead, which is Hector Lester's Ferrari. Jay Palmer, who leads the race, is on his first flying lap. We don't yet know what his lap time is going to be on a flying lap. We'll see it when he crosses the timing line, but they are 4 seconds a lap quicker than the man they're chasing. So there's certainly ample time for this to become not just the battle for 3rd, but the battle for 2nd. Depending on a Palmer lap, it should become the lead battle as well before the end. They're working their way closer and closer to Hector Lester's car, and don't forget that has only done 2 stops. You've got to make 3, so it needs another 130-second pit stop, which is going to throw the car completely out of the equation. Through Aintree, now onto Wellington Straight. The leader has gone by, and Jay Palmer has lapped in a 2:09. That's not a bad effort, actually. His first flying lap. It's only a second or so slower than Tom Sharp here in the Ginetta. So Ben Hetherington is going to have to get past this car in a big hurry now, and then set off in pursuit of the Ferraris. He'll catch Hector Lester easily enough. The Ginetta coming out of Luffield, Tom Sharp at the wheel of it, fighting the car a little bit now, and the Mercedes, which has run so strongly all day, is right there behind him as they come through Woodcote Corner this time. Then they're heading up towards the timing line once more. And that lap for Hector Lester was a 2:14 from Sharp and Hetherington, both of them in the 2:07s. They are catching the race leader, but it's 31 seconds now, Palmer to Hetherington. So keep an eye to that gap. It's the one to monitor now and see whether it's going to come down sufficiently in, and it should do, 43 minutes. So 31.4 seconds, 1st to 4th at the moment. And now Tom Sharp being held up in traffic because he's got there the Steve Chaplin Aston Martin ahead of him that's currently 5th in GT4. Onto Hanger Straight they come now. Both cars get past the GT4 Aston, and now Ben Hetherington lines up to make his move on the inside down towards Stone. He's going to go through there. The very powerful Mercedes rumbles its way through up on the inside line, and the Fortec Run car goes 3rd, and now the challenge is on. 42 minutes, just under 43 minutes remain, and let's now see whether this car is going to be the race-winning car after all. It's got 2 Ferraris to catch and pass in 42 3/4 minutes, as there is the GT4 leader, Adam Christodoulou, at the wheel, still being chased by Bernhard van Oranje, and 3rd in GT4 is the Lotus Evora with Rob Sever at the wheel. 42.5 minutes remain. More action to come after the break. Welcome back to Silverstone here on Motors TV for round 4 of the Avon Tyres British GT Championship, and we are into the last 40 minutes of a 3-hour race that is being led by Jay Palmer in a Ferrari 458 Italia. 2nd is this man, Hector Lester, who's got another pit stop to make to give way to Alan Simonson. And third, right behind him now, is Ben Hetherington in the Mercedes he shares, and he now goes second on the inside at Copse Corner with Jason Minshaw as the co-driver. And this is the car we reckon is now going to take the race victory, because it's been lapping quicker than Jay Palmer, who is ahead, and the gap, which was 31.4 seconds, is now down to 26.8, and in the remaining 40 minutes it should be able to take the race victory. Behind, you've got Ollie Bryant and Johnny Adam in a big hurry as well, and they could yet get onto the podium. The Hector Lester number 3 Ferrari, you've just seen losing a place, has to make another pit stop, so that car, I'm afraid, is not looking all that strong anymore. Behind it on track though, you can see Tom Sharp in the Ginetta. Now he started, Colin White has taken over, and Tom Sharp took over at the second stop. That's got to make another pit stop as well. You've got to do 3 under the regulations. So that car, well placed at the moment, also has to come back in. So it will drop down the order, and that's going to help the Ollie Bryant, Marco Attard BMW run by Acuria Cost that currently is 5th. And Johnny Adam and Andrew Howard, they can go to the end, and they're 6th in the 007 Aston Martin. On board with Ben Hetherington, very much a northwest effort this, the man from Alderley Edge versus his co-driver from just outside Chester, Jason Minshaw. And through the traffic comes the Mercedes now at Village. There is Hector Lester, who's in danger, very imminent danger of losing his 3rd place to Tom Sharp, because the orange Ginetta is getting right up onto the tail of the Ferrari now as they work their way out of the loop. Now heading once more onto Wellington Straight. It's going to happen surely at the approach to Brooklands, isn't it? Because Tom Sharp has got much more pace. He comes up alongside Hector Lester. Really frustrating a situation like this for the pro driver, who can do nothing but watch on from the pit lane. But up the inside goes the Ginetta. Alan Simonson will get back on board that Ferrari, but with a 130-second mandatory stop still to serve, it's going to lose so much time. Effectively another lap. There is the Aston Martin Steve Chaplin giving way to Tom Wilson once again. Winners at Rockingham. So up into 2nd place now is Ben Hetherington. This car is 3rd, the Ginetta that you saw going through, but still to make another stop, Tom Sharp. Hector Lester still to make another stop is in 4th place, and Ollie Bryant is currently running in 5th, and he is lapping quicker than anybody else in front of him. So number 79 BMW looking stronger and stronger as the race wears on. In this little mix, you've got the GT4 lead battle. You've also got number 9 Gregoire de Moustier and Matt Griffin, number 29. Now he is in 9th rather place, 9th place in the Ferrari. He was trying to keep himself on the lead lap a little while ago, was Matt, and that car, for problems we never really got to the bottom of, has had 5 pit stops. But Matt Griffin, I think you're right in saying, now can go to the end in that car, and what further progress can be made. His next target is Warren Hughes. There is Ollie Bryant then in 5th place at the moment. He qualified on pole position, did a really good job in qualifying, and Marco Attard started. He's also done his 2nd stint in the car, and now it's up to Oliver Bryant, who's been a winner here in Historics in the past, to bring the car home. Through Club Corner they come. We're on lap number 60. We've got just over 35 minutes to go, and out of Club Corner comes Ollie Bryant past the Formula 1 pits, heading up towards Abbey. And as he sets the car up for the corner, the last lap he did, it was a 2 minutes 7.1, as I say, quicker than anybody ahead of him. There are people behind lapping a bit quicker, like Dan Brown in another BMW who is in 7th place, and also Matt Griffin, who is in 9th, and he's on the lead lap, Matt Griffin, although about half of it away from the leading car. He needs a safety car now to help him. We've had 2 safety car periods in this race. The first caused by an accident that's eliminated the Mark Blundell McLaren. The second by an accident that eliminated 2 track speed Porsches, as you see the Tom Roach Audi recovering after a spin. That's the car he shares with Dom Evans. And going back to the 2nd safety car period, as people pitted under it, David Ashburn crashed in the 3rd track speed Porsche coming into the pit lane, and it was a big crash as well. So a huge hit for David Ashburn, and he was okay, and admitted it was his fault, but the work that Nick Tandy could have done, we never got to see. There in the pit lane, more GT4 pit stops, the Ginetta G50s, Declan Jones cycling through. GT4, it is still this car, the Porsche of Adam Christodoulou, ahead of Bernard Van Oranje, and they have run nose to tail, and in fact almost side by side at some point for many a lap now. Very good battle this. GT4 very, very popular in Holland where there's no GT3, so this is the main class, and many of the Dutch drivers coming across for this European series now. It's good to to see different shapes and sizes, isn't it? As there, Hector Lester is about to lose out to Ollie Bryant. This for 4th place. And Hector, who's got better and better over the years, is no match, I'm afraid, for Oliver Bryant. The BMW comes up. Should be able to go through at Stoke Corner if he brakes really late, which he will do now. Yes, Oliver Bryant goes through. The man that qualified on pole position yesterday. So he is on a charge. We know he's got the pace around here. And Hector Lester falls back behind him. Hector very much one of the gentleman racers in the series. Ollie Bryant in the pro category. So you've got different categorisations of driver, different levels of ability, you could argue, going up against one another here. Out of Club Corner comes Ollie Bryant then, and he's up in a 4th place. Now, what are his lap times like? 2 minutes 7. Yes, he's still lapping quicker than the next man ahead of him, Tom Sharp. So let's see what progress can be made there. Also intrigued to see what sort of progress Matt Griffin can make against anybody else. He's 9th on the lead lap, chasing after Warren Hughes. But as I say, we kind of need a late race safety car to really give him and maybe even Alan Simonson much more of a chance here. But you never know what the sting in the tail to a British GT Championship race might be. Bryant comes then out of Aintree down towards the stadium once more. So the BMW running now in clear air has worked its way through the traffic. There is the Mercedes running second, Ben Hetherington. The gap when we started monitoring it was 31.4 seconds between him and the leader, Jay Palmer, and the gap is now 17.5. It's on for a win, isn't it, this car, unless anything should close things up around it. So here you've got the Mercedes powering on up towards Maggots, then towards Beckett's, and looking behind, Tom Sharp is being caught by Ollie Bryant, and then you've got Hector Lester falling away into the clutches soon of Johnny Adam. Out of Chapel Curve once again onto the Hanger Straight comes Hetherington. So this car lapping in the 2 minutes 7s and heads down towards Stoke Corner. Now let's head back to the pit lane. News from Gary Champion.
Yeah, David, because I think there's a bit of confusion. Jason, you are kitted up, ready to go back out. The car is about to come back in. We thought you'd done 3, you haven't.
Well, we've done 3 stops, but I've got to do the one for the actual driver change. We had an issue with the fuel pump reset, so that was a quick come in, reset it and go. So I've got to do my driver change.
Okay, fine. Alrighty, we'll leave you to it. Okay, David.
So when Trevor Foster thought he might get away with counting that as one of his stops, he can't. It's got to be 3 mandatory stops for fuel and tyres. Anything else doesn't count. So even if you make more than 3 stops, only the 3 that are for fuel and a driver change actually count, and therefore the car will lose 2 minutes, and therefore it will fall down the order. 45's off the road again. Rory Bryant is back behind the wheel of it, the car that he shares with Anthony Rogers. It's been off the road and it's not going awfully quickly on recovery. So the Mercedes now does set to drop down the order because of this extra pit stop that now has to be made. So Trevor Foster's roll of the dice and trying to count that is not going to work for him. And it was a bold effort to try and count that as one of the stops, but it doesn't work. So 3 mandatory pit stops, but for specific tasks under the regulations. So it's now going to be Oliver Bryant, isn't it, that we need to be monitoring relative to Jay Palmer, because the 79 BMW is lapping quicker than those ahead. Now this is the Mercedes stop. So out gets Ben Hetherington, Jason Minshaw to get in. It's 130 seconds, I should say, come what may. So it's going to lose them a lap and a bit. And of course, the time that it lost with that reset on the dash was going to be 20 seconds or so. So it all adds up over the course of the race, doesn't it? And it means, therefore, that what we're now going to have as the order is Jay Palmer ahead of Tom Sharp, ahead of Ollie Bryant. And the other danger in this might be Johnny Adam. So the Mercedes is getting refueled, but then they've got to put the tyres on it. Jason Minshaw needs to then get back into the race. This will help Matt Griffin, amongst others, to gain a place. Ben Hetherington doing up the belts as Ollie Bryant now works his way down towards the end of Vale. The BMW that was 29.4 seconds back. So at the end of the next lap, we'll get an idea of where he is relative to Jay Palmer. who is lapping in the 2:10s. He is being caught, but it's still a decent enough pace. Door slams shut on the Mercedes. And look at this, carving his way through traffic. Jay Palmer growing in confidence. He has, as I said earlier on in the race, he's had a few wild moments this year, but he's got the pace, and if he can keep out of trouble, he's looking good here. Behind him, back into the race, look, is the Kelly Rugolo Ferrari after its punctured tyre. And up towards the end of the lap now comes Palmer. He's got to get himself past the GT4 Porsche of Adam Christodoulou, which he does. Powers past the pits. That lap that he does is a, let's see, 2 minutes 10 last time, 2 minutes 10 this time as well. So he's now getting into a good rhythm here. And that's just put him a lap up, is it not, on the Mercedes? You've got behind the Tom Sharp Ginetta and then Ollie Bryant, but they're yet to come through. So it's a good lead that the Ferrari still has. Jay Palmer, as you saw, is being pretty ruthless in the traffic. There's 25, the Mark Patterson and Matt Bell Audi, which is currently in 18th place. And that's a lap down on the race leader as they come down to the Hanger Straight once more. Palmer into Stowe, Matt Bell behind him. Christodoulou ahead of Van Oranje in GT4. There, Ollie Bryant in 79. His last lap was a 2 minutes 7. It's 26.6 seconds that he's got to make up. He's also got to get past a Ginetta, which he's almost caught as well. So we've got 28 minutes to go, and he's got to make up 26 seconds, and he's lapping 3 seconds a lap quicker. The sums will work out at what? Can he do it? Into Stowe he comes then. The Barwell run BMW Z4 turns its way through the right-hander, down the Vale now. And with the clock ticking, Ollie Bryant needs to rise to the occasion here. What else is happening behind? Who else is looking quick? And is anybody going to be able to threaten him? Warren Hughes has suddenly speeded up. He's done a slow lap or two. He's now lapping on a Bryant's pace as well in the Audi. And as the cars come up towards Abbey, this is the battle developing for second place. There, second, is Tom Sharp. And behind him, in third, you'll see it in a moment, is the blue and white Kyriakos BMW of Ollie Bryant. So second and third getting closer and closer as they head towards Village, and this fight will continue. We will be right back here at Silverstone. You're looking at the lead battle in GT4 here at Silverstone for round 4 of the Avon Tyres British GT Championship. The overall race lead battle is getting close. GT4 could barely be closer, virtually side by side at Copse. There is the leading car in the hands of Jay Palmer. Behind, now a lap down, is the Mercedes Jason Minshaw back at the wheel of it. And there, second, is Ollie Bryant. Now, the gap when you left us was 26.6 seconds. It is now 4.5, and the reason being that Jay Palmer got caught up in traffic and lost a huge chunk of time. Jason Minshaw is trying to unlap himself, but Ollie Bryant, trying to work his way through traffic, is now looking closer than ever to a victory. It will be the 4th different winning pair of the season. In other words, different winners each time out. And there, you can see what the gap is. And also look at the pace of the Mercedes as Jason Minshaw unlaps himself and goes up the inside of Jay Palmer into Stowe. The GT4 cars try and fight back against the leading Ferrari, and Ollie Bryant in the BMW is booming along in the background, getting closer and closer all the time. We've got 23.5 minutes of the race still to go. Matteo Bobby getting a bit anxious now because he can see a car that he has helped put into the lead being caught. Can Jay Palmer keep his elbows out wide enough for the remaining 20 plus minutes in order to hang on to a race win? It's not looking great for him. It's possible, but it's not looking all that great. Down they come towards Abbey, and again Jay Palmer has got a bit of traffic to sort out, which is the Rob Severs Correza Lotus Evora up the road ahead of him. And the Ferrari pounces on the inside line. That was done properly. And look, Ollie Bryant trying to go around the outside of the GT4 traffic as they came up towards Village. Has it worked for him? Ollie Bryant needing to throw a little bit of caution to the wind here. Yes, he's got past His Highness Prince Bernard Van Oranje, and now up towards Aintree he comes. Ahead is Adam Christodoulou's Porsche, the GT4 Porsche that he shares with Jörg Wiebahn, and they are going to be the two leaders almost together by the end of the lap. It's getting closer and closer up front here. Ollie Bryant working his way through traffic then as he comes up to lap Rob Severs in the Lotus Evora. over the timing line. There's Jason Minshaw. That car is now 12 because of its most recent pit stop. Trevor Foster trying to convince everybody that a second stop for Jason to reset the dash was going to be part of the strategy, and he couldn't count that in the end. He got everyone doubting themselves. Number 29 is being given a drive-through penalty. Matt Griffin is being given a drive-through penalty for not respecting the track limits. Griff is up into 6th place and pounding on relentlessly, as only he knows how, but he's about to cop a drive-through for not respecting the track limits. And Alan Simonson, by the way, is back at the wheel of number 3 and has just done the best of anybody in the middle sector and a personal best in the last. So number 3 Ferrari, even if it won't win the race, is going to end on a high because it's going to be probably the quickest car out there. 79 is Ollie Bryant, and he's getting closer to the leader. It was 8.2, then it was 4.5, it was 2.7 last time. They are almost together. This is the end of Vale. And Jay Palmer, has he lost that place already? He has. He's got a problem. He's off the road. Bryant is ahead of him, and Jay Palmer, has he got a puncture? He has. Front left has gone down, and so Jay Palmer struggling on. He's lost the lead, and now any chance of a victory has gone as well. That's going to put Johnny Adam up into second in the 007 Aston Martin. And so Ollie Bryant is up ahead of the Ferrari, and that's a car heading for the pit lane. But it's going to be a very difficult return to the pit lane. You can see how he's struggling to stay on the circuit. There's Johnny Adam up to second spot, and Dan Brown in the 888 BMW is going to go third. Now, can Johnny Adam get past Ollie Bryant? I think he can. Johnny Adam, at the moment, in the 007 Aston, is the quickest man in the leading group. Now, Ollie Bryant did a 2:10 last time. He might be able to put that down to traffic. 4:06 is a retirement. That is the Corvette of Duncan Houseman and Luke Brahms, and it was Duncan Houseman behind the wheel of it. But Johnny Adam doing what he did at Brands Hatch last year, and that's charging on in pursuit of Ollie Bryant. Well, he caught and passed him at Brands. He nearly caught and passed Jan Mardenborough to win the race. He only missed out by thousandths on the line. There's the Aston Martin there. A car that's never really featured, if you like, as a leader all day, but clever use of strategy and good driving and keeping out of trouble is going to potentially pay dividends. Ollie Bryant's last lap was a 2:07. Johnny Adam was a 2:07 and a slightly slower one by a 10th. So 12.7 seconds now is the lead margin. Through the Beckett's S's they come. More traffic dispensed with. There's Alan Simonson in 15th place. But as ever, the Danish driver has nailed his foot to the floor, and he's about to try and sort out, I think, Rob Barth's Ferrari ahead of him, which he should be able to do coming onto the Hanger Straight. And there's also got some traffic there. This is a battle for position as well. 14th, Barth on the inside. On the outside is Alan Simonson. Johnny Adam is up behind Colin White now, who is in 13th place, ahead of that Ferrari scrap. And Johnny Adam looking for a way past him. This is the problem, of course, that traffic gets in the way. Jay Palmer then into the pits. He was 4th, but that punctured tyre has cost him dear. And he's also got to go to the end. They can't put Matteo Bobby back into that car. There is one very deflated Avon. Was that stress that caused that, or was that he ran over something? Johnny Adam now is being given a hard time by the Ferrari of Alan Simonson. 18.5 minutes to go. Simonson showing his pace, but Johnny Adam is not slow, but Alan Simonson has caught up to him. Colin White is ahead. Johnny Adam doesn't need to defend from Alan Simonson. He can afford to let him go, which he does. So a car that's a lap down, that goes through. Colin White has a bit of a moment, and Alan Simonson's going to get him as well. He's got past Rob Barth. He's now got past Colin White, so he's 13th now, 15th on the Hanger Straight, and 13th about 4 corners later. Johnny Adam gets past the Ginetta as well. Rob Barth tries to follow through as they head now down towards Brooklands once more. Into the left-hander, into the stadium they come. Ollie Bryant, last time, a 2:07.5. Let's see what the gap's going to be this time around. Johnny Adam's lost a bit of ground in traffic, hasn't he? Bryant has done a 2:09. Johnny Adam up through the gears, comes up over the timing line. And we'll see what the gap is going to be as the marshal's ready with his blue flag. There is the race leader. And Johnny Adams, that was a 2:10. The gap's gone up now. 17.5 minutes remain, and it's 13.8 seconds. So Ollie Bryant's lap of a couple back when it was a really slow one was thanks to the traffic. He's on Hanger Straight once again. He's 13 seconds. But now Now the car to watch is in third, because Dan Brown is lapping quicker than the two ahead of him by about 2 seconds against the leader, and almost 3 against the man that's in second spot. The leader goes into Stowe, and if you want to know what 13.8 seconds is, there is the Aston Martin. So that's the gap, and then another 13 seconds back you'll see the gunmetal grey BMW in the hands of Dan Brown that he's taken over from Steve Tandy. There it is with the yellow mirrors, and he is lapping very strongly indeed. It's one of those races where you want the checkered flag to be lost, because there's so much more that can happen were it to be longer than 3 hours. But down towards Stowe Corner comes Dan Brown. Last season he drove in the Block Pan Endurance Series for AF Corsa, had appalling luck all season, and has come to British GT, where he's not yet had a victory, but he's reminding people of how good he is. And Dan, who is quite an underrated driver, he doesn't get the headlines in the way that other British GT drivers do, but he just gets on with it in the car as he's driving, doing the talking. The GT4 battle is getting perilously close to disaster, isn't it, as Bernard Van Oranje looks for a way past Adam Christodoulou, and in this is Jay Palmer with his new tyres looking for a way past the BMW. Brave stuff that, round the outside, and it works, coming out of Beckett's, and he gets past the Porsche, hitting Hanger Straight as well. 16 minutes of the race remaining. And the race director tells me that a few drive-throughs are coming up for more short pit stops, so there's another raft of drama still to come for some of the teams. At the end of Vale, Adam Christodoulou is still squabbling with the Porsche behind, which is the Bernhard Van Oranje Ricardo van der Ende car. And after their most recent pit stops, in fact, Wiebahn has taken over from Adam Christodoulou, and it's now Ricardo van der Ende in for the Dutch Royal. He's now replaced Bernhard Van Oranje. So you've got a man who has won the Formula 4 Festival in the person of Ricardo van der Ende, pushing strongly. And they are for a class lead, 24th and 25th overall. Lead gap last time had gone up again, in fact, 14.4 seconds, just as it had gone up second to third, as one BMW loses a fraction of time, so does one behind. And there, a Wiebahn Christodoulou Porsche turns its way now onto Wellington Straight. Behind is the Porsche. And car number 1, which is currently the Porsche being driven by Michael Caine, is about to get a 6-second stop-go penalty for too short a pit stop. So, having just got up into the leading order, Michael Caine is going to drop down again. Has Matt Griffin taken his drive-through? I don't think he has. Oh, maybe he has, actually. Yes, he has. In comes Caine. So, 5 seconds stop-go. See how many places he loses, and that is Jay Palmer again, and is that another puncture? There's smoke pouring out of the right rear corner. I think another tyre has gone bang, hasn't it, as he came over the timing line. Jay Palmer is having no luck whatsoever with that car. Michael Caine blasts away. He's going to lose a bit of time, but he might gain a spot back because of Jay Palmer's woes. It is, the other side now has gone bang. A second puncture. Well, either this car is set up in a very odd way, or Jay Palmer is very curb happy, but he's got that happened coming past the pits. He's got to do a whole lap on that tyre. That really is the race run for him. There's no way they can come back to a half-sensible result after that, is there? Onto Hanger Straight he comes, and that is going to be a very difficult car to control. And the other problem is, what damage will he do as he drags it back? The leader comes over the timing line, 70 laps now done, Ollie Bryant, and that was a better lap again. That was a 2:06 as he now tries to build this lead. Going on behind Ollie Bryant, Johnny Adam is dropping away. He is not lapping as quickly now as the BMW, so an initial flurry of Johnny Adam looked like it was looking good for the Aston Martin to catch the BMW. It has not turned out that way, because now you've got Ollie Bryant building this gap all the time. What about the lap times behind of Dan Brown? He also quirkily can't do much about the Aston Martin now, and I don't think this is purely down to traffic. Warren Hughes running in 4th. Jay Palmer was 5th. Michael Caine was 6th. That's possibly going to help Matt Griffin, isn't it? Who was on for trying to get 3 wins in 3 weekends in 3 different championships, but it's not going to pan out that way for him unless there's yet more drama to come before the very end here. Down towards Stowe Corner comes Dan Brown. Podium in that car would be the best result of the season for that team, And I think I'm right in saying that this will be only the second time this year that we've had a BMW on the podium, because Marco Attard and Ollie Bryant were on the podium at Alton, third in race 1. Looks like that's going to be the winning car here, though. 12 more minutes are on the clock, but I'm looking down the timing. Apart from Matt Griffin pressing on, but there's nobody really looking as though they're going to gain many places now before the end, because the drivers are pretty evenly matched. There's another stop-go penalty being issued, and it is to the Colin White, Tom Sharp, Ginetta, number 40, and that's a 4-second stop-go penalty for, again, too short a pit stop. And if you're wondering how it's all measured so accurately, it's thanks to the timing system that is able to show the race director a lap that includes 130 seconds or is short, and so it instantly flags up an alert that a car that's made a pit stop did not do it to the allotted time, and so there is the evidence. It's not down to a marshal and a stopwatch, it is down to the timing system, and so you're pretty much back to rights. I think the trim that goes around the window is trying to peel itself off the Ricardo van der Ende, Bernhard van Oranje BMW. I don't think it's going to make it much quicker by being much lighter, but anyway, it's a rather quirky look to the car now as it starts to peel off the side. And we have got the J. Palmer Ferrari limping back to the pits, and I said a drama might well be the damage done as he limps back. Well, you can see that the tyre is completely shredded and he's not done much of the bodywork there. The car, I think, is in the pit lane now, and that is a bit mangled, but the real question is not that part, it's what you can't see underneath the wheel arch. Has that suffered any suspension damage? Has it done any internal damage? You can see it's ripped bodywork from inside the wheel arch as the rubber flails around, and that may well not go back into the race. It may now be too badly damaged to continue. Ollie Bryant's last lap was a bit slower. Again, maybe back markers, but the gap was down a touch. And so the race is on lap 72. Still one of the best battles in the race has been for GT4, and it is now Wiebahm's Porsche ahead of the Van Oranje BMW. The two of them still tied together, and they have been like this pretty much through the race, haven't they? There was one lap, I think, when we got them side by side. Look at all the rubber being spat up as they run over what's left of J. Palmer's tyre. Down they come now towards Brooklands. The Porsche is ahead of the BMW, but again, you see, you've got the, what you might argue, genuine GT car that's good in a straight line, but then the touring car is pretty good through the corners, and it makes for a fascinating contest between these two. Jürgen Wiebahn taking over the good work of Adam Christodoulou, and the team having had all its woes of having to find a third car for this weekend. Car 1 destroyed in the ring 24 hours. Car 2 wouldn't start because of a duff ECU. This is the third option, and here it is, leading the way. It would be richly deserved if this were to win the class, wouldn't it? The best of the Brits, incidentally, is Rick Parfitt Jr., who is now running third in GT4 in number 44, the car that he shares with Ryan Ratcliffe. How is Jason Minshaw getting on? He's in 11th place. A top 10 finish is possible. He's hustling on behind Charles Espenlaub. He's also being caught by Alan Simonson, who's the quickest man on track. There's Johnny Adam. Last time, Bryant did a 2.9. Johnny Adams' equivalent lap is a 2.8. Gap's down to 12.6 seconds, but I don't think it's coming down enough, is it, with 9 minutes to go, for us to get concerned about the lead changing, unless anybody is marginal on fuel towards the end and has to relax their pace. But I'm not convinced that is in the offing. Third place man through, Dan Brown, is lapping quicker than those ahead, but he's got to make up 25.6 seconds. That's not going to happen as a slightly sideways BMW of Bernhard van Oranje turns its way out of Stowe Corner. Johnny Adam, by the way, is just being warned about the track limits, so he's pushing on, that's for sure. So is this GT4 fight. Jürgen Wiebahn turning his way now up through Club Corner. Behind him is the Van der Ende Oranje BMW. Bernhard van Oranje regular in the Spa 24 hours as well, and the two of them still tied together. 0.3 of a second is what this gap is. Now lower down in 6th and 7th you've got here Richard Abra in the Aston Martin that has not really been on the radar, but again, just a very good solid drive has brought that car up into 6th. And there, 7th is Michele Rugolo, despite a puncture with that AF Corsa Ferrari. That's had a pretty strong day. Michele Rugolo, who is another very, very quick Ferrari peddler, whether it's in European GT racing, he's also very good in American sports car racing, comes over the timing line. That, I suspect, may well change in favour of the Italian by the end. It's for 6th place. The gap is 0.4 of a second, and 7 3/4 minutes of the race remain. Going up now towards Maggots. As they do, Aston Martin rides the curb. Richard Abra, very impressive to see him actually at this level, because the 24-year-old has done, as I said earlier in the race, the Aston Martin GT4 Challenge and a bit of brick car racing, but you put him on this stage against some of the drivers around him, and he has certainly not disgraced himself. It's been a very, very impressive British GT outing for Richard Abra, and let's hope we see a bit more of it, because it's been a good run this. He's about to lose a place, I fear, but it's no disgrace to drop back behind Michele Rugolo. Out of Stoke Corner they come, now down through Vale. Still leading the way is Ollie Bryant. His last lap was a 2 minutes 8. 13 seconds ahead of Johnny Adams, so the gap has just widened a touch. Abra running in 6th, the car he shares with businessman Mark Poole, turning its way now out of Club Corner. Michele Rugolo right there behind him. 8th behind these two is Aaron Scott, 9th then is Michael Caine, 10th is Charles Espenlaub, 11th is Alan Simonson, Rob Barth is 12th, Jason Minshaw is 13th, Steve Jans is 14th, and 15th at the moment is Colin White, but yet to serve a stop-go penalty for getting the pit stop too short last time around. Up towards the loop with 6 minutes on the clock comes the fight for 6th place. Race leader is on lap 74 in the person of Ollie Bryant. In GT4, there is car number 43, which is Zoe Wenham in the car she shares with Declan Jones. Zoe Wenham's pink crash helmet you can see in the car, and that was the winner of the 2 races, in fact, at Alton Park over the Easter weekend. Currently running in 35th place after woes early on. That car is 23 laps down, but it is still going, and hopefully it will score points, which is the main aim now, to get it to the end and try and score something. Jason Minshaw goes through, and it's Rob Barth ahead that he's chasing, but actually lost time against last time around, so the Mercedes now, because of the last pit stop, has fallen down the order, and not looking likely now to come back. The lap time is not that strong either, 2:11s. There is Ollie Bryant, whose last lap was a good one, a 2 minutes 8, and after a good effort in qualifying, it looks as though this car is going to be on target for the win now. What have we got left? We've got 5 minutes. The car comes up out of Woodcote Corner and heading over the timing line. Ollie Bryant, the race leader, completes lap number 74. From Cops Corner up towards Maggotts goes Oliver Bryant. 5 more minutes of the race remain. Johnny Adam is 10.5 seconds behind. Now, last time Bryant's lap was a 2:10, and I'm not convinced that was all just about traffic. Let's see what the next lap is going to be like. Let's also try and monitor some sector times and just see whether or not Ollie Bryant is driving a touch slower, and whether or not he needs to be driving slower or not. Coming up towards the right-hander of Stowe, in the background you see the Aston Martin in the hands of Johnny Adam. Down through the loop, there is Michele Rugolo, who is still stuck behind Richard Abra. This time around in the first sector, there's little to choose, in fact, between the 2 leading cars, so the gap doesn't come down by a huge amount. Abra versus Rugolo is still very close, but Rugolo can't yet find a way past him again, nose to tail as they come up towards Luffield. Out of the right-hander, up now they come towards the timing line, and as they do so, lots of curb being used by Michele Rugolo, but Richard Abra is doing a very good job here. Nowhere near as experienced as Rugolo is, but he's holding his own, hanging on to the place. 6th as he turns into Cops Corner. And if he can withstand this for another 3.5 minutes and finish in the top 6, it will be a very, very good result indeed. Up front then, the gap last time down to 10.5 seconds. In sector 1, they were pretty evenly matched. Looking to see what they do in the second sector. Ollie Bryant has gone through it. Richard Abra is making his way onto the Hanger Straight. And he's still got Michele Rugolo chasing after him as they work now lap 75. This elasticated lead battle has just had a very slow middle sector from Johnny Adam. So the leader has gone by, and it's a 2 minutes 7.4, which is a good lap. And it's going to be quite a wait, I think, before we get Johnny Adam. If anything, he might now be being threatened a bit by Dan Brown. What you're looking at here is the fight for 6th place. Still Richard Abra ahead of Michele Rugolo. this, the race leader is at Beckett's. We've got one more lap at the end of this, I would suggest, looking at the lap times and looking at the clock. And Johnny Adam has done a 2:11, and he's 8.2 seconds up on Dan Brown. Now, why was there a slow lap? Was that because of traffic, a mistake, or fuel economy now? Dan Brown still pushing on. The Ecurie Cost team look on. The car run by Barwell Motorsport, Mark Lammer's team. And Mark's been around the block enough times to know how to win these races. Johnny Adam onto the Hanger straight, look, working his way through traffic. And where's the Dan Brown BMW in the background? There it is with the yellow mirrors. So is that car getting any closer? Let's see. In the first sector of the lap, yes, the BMW is quicker. So the gaps come down a touch more between second and third. And Dan Brown chasing on. Is he going to be able to usurp the Aston Martin before the end of the race? They're not going to catch this car, I don't think. Ollie Bryant barring a disaster. He's got this one in the bag. Third at Alton Park. Previously the best result for the car. Ecurie Cost victorious at Alton last season, but Ollie Bryant with Marco Attard. The wine merchant comes up now through the loop on towards Aintree, and one more lap should remain. Behind is Alan Simonson, who's got himself up into 11th place in a bit of a damage limitation kind of drive for him, but he's pushing on as best he can. Ahead is the Porsche of Charles Espenlaub. That's the next car Ollie Bryant's got to lap, and it's the next car Simonson has got to try to overtake as they come now down once again into Brooklands. So less than a lap time is left in the race. It'll be one more lap to run. There is Ginetta 40, Colin White back at the wheel, and although that ran strongly early on in the race, it's down to 15th place now after its pit stops, and also after the necessity for a stop-go penalty. Just going back to the Mercedes, of course, number 14, although they made their extra pit stop late, what didn't help matters, I suppose, was keeping Ben Hetherington out all the way through that first safety car period, and others got a pit stop out of the way without losing too much time. So that, in the long run, has gone against the teams that stayed out a long time early on in the race, whereas Ecurie Cost got this car in and out for one of its stops early on. There's Marco Attard, who is watching his car on the last lap of the race. He don't look, I don't think, there. He's still very, very tense, but Marco Attard looking for a maiden British GT victory. Marco, who's a good AM driver for years. He was always associated with Ferraris. He drove with the team in the Blancpain race here last year and did a pretty good job, and has done a very good job today. The checkered flag there is being made ready. That's almost time up. 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second on the stopwatch, bleeping and counting down. And as the race leader comes down towards Vale, it is Ollie Bryant leading by 15 seconds from Johnny Adam, who in turn has got away again from Dan Brown. So one lap, one car is slow, one lap, another one is slow. Part of it is traffic, I accept, but it looks as though the top three that we have is going to remain that way. Ollie Bryant then up now towards Abbey. The BMW. Great looking and great sounding car that is on target for a win, but just look at the cars that he's between, because Alan Simonson, who is behind him of course, is in real terms getting closer to Charles Espenlaub for 10th place. He might even try and unlap himself from the BMW. Yes, he is trying to do that, and Ollie Bryant to be well advised to let him go. He doesn't need to get involved in any silliness, so let him go. And now Alan Simonson has got a chance, because he's got one more lap now in which to do it, to get past the Porsche and take 10th place for himself and Hector Lester. Ollie Bryant, who got involved, if you remember, in the championship decider last year when he turfed Matt Griffin out of the way and got a penalty for it, has redeemed himself now, I think, because this has been a very, very impressive drive coming up towards Luffield, turning his way through the final corner at Woodcote. The checkered flag is being prepared, and so for Ecurie Cost, it's going to be a victory at Silverstone for Marco Attard and Ollie Bryant. The BMW comes across the line to win. It's the first non-Porsche victory of the season in British GT, but it's a fourth different winning combination in 4 races. Marco Attard, who has done his work, now affords himself a big smile, deservedly so. Johnny Adam comes through for 2nd place with Andrew Howard in the fastest ice cream van in the world, the Aston Martin run by Beachney Ice Cream, and for 3rd, Dan Brown and Steve Tandy in a car that has been there or thereabouts all day, and it's there when it matters. Dan Brown, again, another of those very Dan Brown-like races where he just gets on with it and delivers the results without a huge amount of fuss. 4th is going to be Warren Hughes, that car I think losing out because of the extra time it had on its last pit stop, and Matt Griffin is going to be on for 5th. Now, of the British GT4 teams, and everybody will score points in British GT4, but of the regular British teams, this, Rick Parfitt Jr., he's going to be the winner. He comes up towards Luffield, the car that he shares with Ryan Ratcliffe, and so Rick Parfitt Jr. turning his way now as third in GT4, but the best of the regular British registered teams. He will come through to win the internal part of GT4, if you like, the race within a race, and he comes across the line now to be third GT4, which has been won by Adam Christodoulou and Jörg Vierbahn, ahead of Ricardo van der Ende and Bernhard van Oranje. There they are, as close on the slowing down lap as they've been for much of the race, and Rick Parfitt Jr. coming home for third in GT4, and with Ryan Ratcliffe the best of those that are regulars in the British Championship. Now, we're not done yet, because for 8th, Aaron Scott has got Michael Caine right up behind him. Michael recovering after his stop-go penalty. Is he going to be able to get past on the run-up towards the checkered flag? Look at this, 8th spot, Ferrari versus Porsche. It shows how the balance of performance works. Over the timing line, absolutely together. Aaron Scott takes 8th place by 2/10 ahead of Michael Caine. But what about 10th? Because Charles Espinelab was ahead of Alan Simonson when they started the lap. We will see who is going to be 10th when they get to the line. But let's hear from one of the winners, Marco Attard, because he is with Gary Champion.
Yes, he is, David. And, well, I was going to say a very happy man, but you look still terribly tense, Marco.
That's the longest 20 minutes of my life, I think, at the end there. I mean, Ollie's done a great job, but that's hard work watching those screens. Anyway, it's fantastic news, really good news.
And I mean, we spoke to you way back at the beginning of the race, which must seem like sort of a weekend ago, and then it was, you know, you were chuffed to bits then. Did you think that it was going to be a win?
It was looking doubtful. You know, I was just so worried about, you know, the mix-up when we got caught up in the traffic and all that. But you know, it came together. Ollie's done a great job, and it's just so exciting. It's absolutely so happy.
I thought it was very sweet that you actually, just at the last there, literally the last few hundred yards, and your little hands came together almost to pray.
Yeah, some of my friends might say something else about that, but yes, okay. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, still worried until he gets past the line.
Well, you've got plenty of wine, and I assume that it will flow happily.
Yeah, absolutely. I think tonight we ought to be celebrating. So yeah, we'll get some out tonight.
Brilliant, Marco. Thanks very much. Well done. That's very good. There you go, Marco Attard.
Right, I'm going to get down to the
And he, as Gary says, he's looking combination of happy and relieved. Just to finish off the top 10, Alan Simonson didn't get past Charles Espinelab on the last lap. He missed out by 0.182 of a second. That was all. It couldn't have been much closer. Well, there is a car that's done a very good job all day. Look, barely a mark on it. It has gone like clockwork, and it's a win for Marco Attard and for Ollie Bryant. BMW takes its first British GT win of the 2013 season. Aston Martin arrives second, Johnny Adam and Andrew Howard, and BMW for third, thanks to Dan Brown and Steve Tandy. And so the drivers in a few moments will make their way up to the podium. And here at Silverstone, still to come, we have Formula 3, Ginetta and Volkswagen racing to look forward to, as there, out of the car, gets Ollie Bryant. He has been a winner at Silverstone in the past in historics, and now adds a very good modern GT win. Is embraced by Marco Attard, and Mark Lemmer will be down there somewhere, no doubt, as the team boss. Ollie Bryant still to take off his crash helmet. Second generation racer, his dad Graham, who was a sports car racer a long time ago, had a few years off to build up his business, and has come back with a very nice collection of historic cars. There is Mark Lemmer in the headset, dwarfed by the drivers celebrating. And in GT4, Bernhard van Oranje and Ricardo van der Ende second in the class, embrace the class winners Adam Christodoulou and Jörg Vierbahn. There's Ollie Bryant, all smiles then, as he can celebrate a win. Johnny Adam is there. That's Steve Tandy behind in the sunglasses with his first podium of the season. Steve switching from track speed to the BMWs with 888 this year. Let's hear from the winner, Gary. Ollie Bryant is all yours.
Well, I have to say, Ollie Bryant, the smile is much better than the... Wow, no, he's got one now, look. Now the relief is there. But the boss, if I can call him that, was very, very tense in that last, well, 20 minutes, I think.
Yeah, no, it was a very exciting race. I mean, at the start it got very chaotic and lots of people were pushing very, very hard for a 3-hour race, and we knew that to get a result we just had to stay out of trouble. Marco did a good job hanging on to pole at the start, and no, it was really just staying out of trouble. That was the key. I mean, there were people crashing left, right and centre, and bits of carbon fibre all over the track, so several times I thought I'd picked up punctures, but fortunately it wasn't the case, so really lucky. The team did a fantastic job with the car. Balance was really good this weekend, and it's fantastic. Just really, really pleased. Marco, obviously, as well, a great result for him after disappointment we had at Rockingham. So, really pleased to get the top step.
Okay, I think he might be able to spare 12 bottles of wine as a sort of, well done, to be honest.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
That's great. Thanks very much indeed, David.
Yeah, you see at the moment all Marco's given Ollie is a bottle of water, which doesn't really come close to what Ollie would like to celebrate with, but I think the champagne will be on the podium. And there is Andrew Howard after a very, very good run for that team. There's always bags of potential, but as I said during the race, Andrew, often through no fault of his own, ends up being caught up in a bit of grief, but the car has kept out of the wars. That's another team that's going to be here next week in the Blancpain Endurance Series race. Johnny Adam is there, Andrew Howard is there, and so too is Gary.
Well, I have to say, the ice cream's fantastic, but it won't be anywhere near as good as second place, will it, for you boys?
That was absolutely stunning. Hope you enjoyed your ice cream.
I loved it. Thanks very much indeed. Yeah, I had a 3-tub stop.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, absolutely fantastic. I mean, all credit to the guys in front. Great race, but for us, starting 8th with the melee and 3 hours, fantastic.
Yeah, it was incident filled, I think, wasn't it? There was plenty of stuff to avoid out there.
It was, everyone was having their own battle. There were quite a few GT4 cars here, which is great to see, and they're having a race within themselves, so you have to give a bit of track room out there, but stunning result for the team. P2, kind of just keeping tabs with the BM there, but yeah, great result for the Aston.
Fantastic, guys. Thanks very much indeed. David.
Thanks, Gary. Good to hear from the Aston Martin drivers then, Johnny Adam and Andrew Howard, and as I say, Dan Brown and Steve Tandy finishing in 3rd place. Well, a very dramatic 3 hours. An awful lot has happened, and there is much to reflect upon and discuss as the drivers head to the podium here after the break. Welcome back to Silverstone. Our day of British GT Formula 3 will continue shortly with the next of the races for the Volkswagen Cup. But let's just confirm the results of the Avon Tars British GT Championship. 4th round, a win for Marco Attard and Ollie Bryant from Andrew Howard and Johnny Adam. 3rd to Steve Tandy and Dan Brown, ahead of Rembert Berg and Warren Hughes. Then Duncan Cameron and Matt Griffin, with Mark Poole and Richard Aberett riding out the top 6. They were ahead of Steve Wyatt and Michele Rugolo, John Dillon and Aaron Scott 8th, ahead of Atman Al-Hati and Michael Caine. With the Charleses, Putnam and Espen Lab just 10th by 10th of a second from Hector Lester and Alan Simonson. Gary Eastwood 12th ahead of Rob Bath, Hetherington and Ming Shaw 13th ahead of the Mercedes of Hummel and Steve Jans. And let's have a look at the GT4 order lower down the classification, because that was won outright by Adam Christodoulou and Jörg Wiebahn, but Ryan Ratcliffe and Rick Parfitt Jr., the best of the Brits in their Ginetta, 3rd in the overall GT4 contest. So we have then the drivers up on the podium. And on the top step of the GT4 podium then, Adam Christodoulou and Jörg Wiebahn, with the Ricardo van Ender and Bernhard van Oranje combination for 2nd, and 3rd already with their trophies, Ryan Ratcliffe and Rick Parfitt Jr. And the trophies now will go to the winning drivers, and that will go the way of Adam Christodoulou and Jörg Wiebahn.
Of Jörg, and also in the hands of Adam. They hold the trophies high to the crowd down there, and a huge cheer for the drivers. Delighted with that they are. Thank you, David, for making the presentation. Let's have you all close together on the podium. A photograph, a photograph first of all with all of you. There we go. Ricardo van Ender can't wait to celebrate and have a little champagne, but we have a photograph first of all 6 of the drivers on.
So the GT4 drivers there, with Adam Christodoulou in the centre with the trophy and the white overalls. Very happy man. A Brit wins in GT4. The British GT4 element of the race being run with the European GT4 trophy, which is why we have a very big GT4 entry, and we started with 48 cars at the beginning of the weekend. We lost one in free practice, but we did lose one before the race started, a couple of cars in fact, struggling with mechanical dramas after the warm-up. So as the champagne is sprayed by the GT4 victors, then a fresh set of trophies and bottles of champagne prepared for the GT3, the outright podium as well. Adam Christodoulou, another man that we see in the Blancpain Endurance Series, now carving a name for himself in GT racing, having raced Formula Renault UK in this country. Then he went off to America, raced in Star Mazda for a time, and the drivers then from GT4 head off the podium. And we've had some tremendous racing in that. In fact, of course, it was closer at the end in GT4 than GT3, but Porsche defeating BMW in GT4. BMW defeats everybody in GT3 as the drivers then make their way to the podium. And Ollie Bryant and his co-driver, Marco Attard, ready to make their way up to the top step. And BMW's first and third. So, are we ready? See the drivers gathering behind the podium. So, as the fans wait ready for the cars to be released for the next race, the winning drivers are about, I think, to make their way onto the podium. I'm quite sure for why they have been delayed, but anyway, the drivers are just about ready, I think, to go. And out they come, Steve Tandy and Dan Brown for their third place, for second, Johnny Adam and Andrew Howard. Out they come. And then the top step, which will go the way of Oliver Bryant and Marco Attard. Out they come, a very happy Marco Attard. Ollie Bryant having done a sterling job to bring the car home. Not put a wheel wrong in that last stint, which was a fairly tense last stint, as Marco Attard said. Steve Tandy then, along with Dan Brown, collecting his trophy. I said to Steve yesterday, what's the BMW like compared to the Porsche? He said, well, bearing in mind Porsches have won all the previous 3 races, run by the team I used to drive for. Better not answer that just yet, but that's his best result of the season. I think he'll be pretty pleased with that, and this a good circuit for BMW, as you've seen, first and third. And the Aston Martin of Andrew Howard and Johnny Adam, a good, solid run, keeping out of trouble, and the pace has been there. And again, Johnny Adam underlining his ability. He had his spell in the British Touring Car Championship, but won on the road, but was then penalised, never won again. And we never perhaps saw the best of him in touring cars, but in GT racing, he's very much making a name for himself. And in all cases there, you've got a very good Pro-Am spread. You've got 3 very successful businessmen, 3 very quick co-drivers that all go together to make up the strongest domestic GT championship. And the drivers now take the corks out the top of the bottle, and also making their way up onto the podium are Mark Poole and Richard Ambra as the drivers of the weekend for some excellent drives in the Gentleman Trophy class as well. So everybody's there, and the champagne, I think, is just about ready to spray. On track, there are cars for the APR Volkswagen Racing Cup. We're going to come to that race very shortly indeed. We had a very exciting first one. Race 2 should be a cracker as well, as the GT drivers can celebrate after 3 long, hard hours full of drama, full of tension at Silverstone at the end of round 4 of the championship.